I think here at the vPub, we should always be mindful of people who are just starting out in whiskey, about beginners, newbies, whatever, people that are coming into the scene and trying to fathom it all out. And we should try and always kind of point the dialogue, at least some of the time, being mindful of these people. And I think every now and again, maybe even dedicate a vPub like tonight with those type of people in mind, people that want to spend a bit less, perhaps, maybe people that are already drinking whiskey, but they want to extend things a little bit. What about we do that with, a target in mind, a budget, a maximum ceiling, so that as we look at flavour profiles along Scotland and as we look at all the regions, we try and keep a very, very sharp focus on price. This is 2023 after all. And as I was working through all of that and doing all of that, I realized that, the pub is still full of enthusiastic, impassioned whiskey folk. So, can't it be both? I'll see you in a second. Hello, whiskey folk. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Thursday night. Welcome to the vPub. I hope you're all doing very, very well. Um, it's wonderful to see so many of you in already. Over 100 of you in before I even pressed the go live button, and over 200 of you in already. It might be a busy night, but it doesn't matter. If you're here live, fantastic. Welcome. Get yourself comfortable. We're going to have some fun doing this tonight. And if you're watching it on the replay, thank you so, so much. If you're There's some of the growing audience over on Facebook that's watching it over there because I shared the vPub on YouTube and Facebook Live simultaneously. Fantastic, thank you for that. But the chat that I'm interacting with tonight, the chat that I refer to as the lounge, the beautiful whiskey folk, the dedicated barflies, that's inside YouTube. So the comments that I'm interacting with live are over there. So you just open up YouTube, type in Aquavite or whatever, and you can find us in the live chat is happening in the window there. That's on mobile and desktop. Fantastic. Welcome, everybody. I hope you all had a nice wee Burns night last night. I hope you raised a glass to the bard and all of these things that we do. I tend to find that the more I've kind of got into whiskey, the more I'm mindful of that. Burns night was just an occasional thing. It wasn't something that we celebrated every year all the time. But since I've gotten into whiskey, it seems to be we don't miss it. There's a real kind of affinity there between Burns and whiskey. It's difficult to kind of pull them apart. Of course, he wrote Scotch Drink and things, and bizarrely and ironically, he was actually a customs officer, wasn't he? But there was lots of people celebrating Burns Night last night. We didn't. We celebrated Burns Night last weekend and Saturday night, and it was a good wee night that we had, and I didn't have to cook this year, which was fantastic. But I did join up with Scott at SMWS, and we had a nice little session together. There was a surprise guest popped on and things like that. It was to very much for my benefit, and I'm very grateful to them for it as well. And that's on the SMWS America stream. So if you go to SMWS USA on YouTube, you'll find that I was hanging out with them in the early hours of the morning, my time, on Burns morning. I also did a couple of collaborations recently that you might be interested in knowing about, and that was with my friend Rob from Whiskey in the Six and Jeremy from Sippers Social Club. Two great guys doing fantastic content on whiskey. They've been going for years and years, and they get together to do this collaborative platform called the Whiskey Rant. It's great stuff. They've done a lot of episodes out there now. You can watch it on YouTube or you can listen to it podcast style. It's a great format, and they just talk about things from their perspective in whiskey. And they invited me on to do a rant, but we ranted on for so long that they were able to make it part one and part two. So there's two sessions. If you've not got enough of me already. Welcome in, everyone. Let's jump into the chat. Before I get onto the topic tonight and the kind of rules and things that I've set for myself, I've got a wee bit of housekeeping, a couple of wee announcements to make. But I'll jump into the lounge now, pick up some of this orange that's trying to get my attention, and welcome some of you beautiful whiskey folk and dedicated barflies. So good to see you all. I love it. I look forward to my Thursday nights. I hope you do too. Lowlander is here saying, "Evening Aquavite. Your audio is a wee bit garbled." Oh my goodness, you sound like a Dalek gone wonky. Eh, let's see. That should be terrible. And that should be better. I hope, Lowlander. Sometimes the audio does kind of start a bit bad and it picks up a wee bit better. Let's pop that there. Turn down the gain a little bit. Just make sure that hopefully it's okay. Are the rest of you hearing me okay? That would be a disaster. You don't need to see me, but you probably need to hear me, right? Gordon Fraser is in saying, good evening, Aquaviti. Fantastic. Hey, Roy. Let's have a look. Sound is good to me, says Emma Karsten. Audio is fine here. Audio all good here. Great. Evening, Roy. Good to catch a vPub live once. Your sound is fine. Gerwin Blocker, Lee J, Karsten, Don McCausland, Blair Stevenson. Thank you all so much for confirming. Good to see you, Gordon. Nice to welcome you in. Lee Hosey's here as well. Good to see you, Lee, the Whiskey Fly. Caught a wee Instagram post of you setting up to watch here tonight. That's kind of cool, quite meta. Thank you, Lee. I hope you enjoy. It's nice to have you live, buddy. Nora Alex is insane. I was going to try to spend less, but there's so much good stuff being released. I know, it's very tempting. And I think as time's going on, it's becoming more and more complex to make these decisions. So as a community, I think it's incumbent upon us to reach out to people that are just stepping in and remembering what it was like for us to step in when the choice was what I mean. If it, for me, 18 years ago now, my goodness, it was already quite a complex place to step into then. And I did find it occasionally. I found the choice a little bit intimidating. I wasn't really sure. I wasn't comfortable making my way around all the brands and the distilleries and things originally. I got comfortable with it quickly, but that's because of how cool a community whiskey can be. Bruno Martins is here saying, good evening, Roy. Happy to be back after 2 missed vPubs in a row. Bruno, no problem. They're always there for you to catch on the replay, my friend. It's always wonderful to welcome you in from Portugal when you can make it, my friend. And Mike Molasses is saying, good evening, Roy. Good evening, Mike. Nice to welcome you. And Gerben, as I've already said, has helped me out with my audio. Good to have you. Gerben's tuning in to us from the Netherlands. Justin Wan is here saying, I'm going to jump the gun. No problem, Justin. And he's listing off. He's saying Port Charlotte 10, Deanston 12, Glenallachie 12, the sherry one, Arran Quarter Cask, Campbeltown Loch, so it's blended malt, covering 5 regions, £187 on Master Malt. Not bad, I think. I think you've done very, very well there. You've certainly done very well at nailing the natural side. And where have you saved the money there? PC, Deanston, Glenallachie, that's the Highlands. Oh, you've got 2 Highlanders in there, haven't you, Deanston and Arran? Campbeltown Loch. So you don't have an Islay in there. If you were to switch one out and cover all the regions, I wonder how you got on, Justin. But fantastic suggestions. Lowland is saying, actually scrap what I just wrote. Your audio sounds fine now. Lowlander, thank you so much. So it was okay. You had me chasing ghosts there. Jerry Miller is saying, good evening, Roy. Thanks for always making Thursdays worthwhile. My goodness, Jerry, thank you so much, my friend. I try my best. Even when it's just me, I love having guests on. Sometimes the more the merrier, and it gets really crazy and things. But I also kind of like to tackle subjects that are a wee bit crunchy. And sometimes it's good to have collaborators in order to do that. But sometimes it's nice just for me to kind of chew through it myself with you guys as a bit of a sounding board. And I've enjoyed the last couple of vPubs doing that, the predictions one and last week's ignored one. They've allowed me to get a lot off my chest. And it also let me go through a lot of whiskies. And I tend to focus, as you notice, on whiskies that I can recommend. It was nice to do the ignored last week, but what we discovered, and we may discover that a little bit tonight, is whiskies that seem appealing, but when you actually put them on trial, you compare and contrast them, you realize that they're left wanting a little bit. And that's where we don't want people spending money. We don't want the whiskey that doesn't live up to the value proposition, right? It's not worth the money we paid for it. It doesn't bring the quality and engagement. Now, of course, it's a very subjective thing and it's not the same for everyone. It's never going to be one size fits all. It's just the way that it is. But generally on these whiskies, I'm using you guys too. I'm getting feedback from you of what you're enjoying, what you're liking. So when I talk about whiskies that I'm enjoying and recommending, yes, it's about me and what I'm enjoying and recommending, but it's things that I feel often comfortable about because I've heard it from you too. It's very bi-directional and it's very useful. It's very powerful. Some of the whiskies I'm going to share tonight, absolutely, you're talking about them too. Alistair Gray, good evening, and the magnificent barflies. Sorry, Alistair, I tried to read your comment a wee bit too fast there. Good evening, Alistair. It's nice to have you in from Speyside. MJ Rodness saying good evening, barflies and aquavite. And Pierre is saying evening, Roy. Good as always to see you in your own vPub. Aye, Frank, you've been here. It's nice when I can have people here, but it feels like right now I've got 300 of you hanging out with me, and it feels fantastic. Thanks to everybody for your support. I'm going to try and pick up the comments as we go throughout tonight. I'll be jumping in quite regularly, hanging out with you guys. Justin Wannistein, I believe Glenallachie is a Speysider as well, so I think I've covered the other 5 regions. Okay, they're going back and making sure that I've put in these silly little rules tonight, and the rules were there to challenge me, but also if we're going to teach people, or if we're going to guide people, or help inform people. You know, regions have been long debunked. We know that they have, and I'll touch upon that in a second. But they're very, very useful for people coming into whiskey to kind of break it down into more manageable chunks. And you can talk about a kind of classic style that might have existed in those regions at once upon a time, and there's still distilleries out there that represent that today. So all of these concepts are nice, but it's also quite nice to kind of weave it in as part of the challenge, to focus and make us really, really think. And through doing that, we realize where there are gaps, where it's difficult to find products that fit our budget and fit what we are after as enthusiasts sipping whiskey in 2023. John Manning is here. John, fantastic, buddy. It's great to have you in. He's bought me, he's celebrating actually being a member of the Barflies for 19 months. My New Year's resolution to spend less has failed. Oh dear, it's very early in the year, John. You can still recover it. You can still recover. But it's kind of what I said in the predictions video. A lot of people are trying to do that, but finding it harder and harder because whiskey hooks into you more and more. It tenderizes you. It tells you about what you would get if you spend more. Of course, it's diminishing returns, but we all get suckered, don't we? So it's nice to have resets. So this could prove to be helpful in that way. Water Life Film is in tonight. Good to see you. I hope that's Greg. Evening, everyone popping in from Toronto. Good to have you, Greg, if that's yourself. I hope you're doing well up there in Toronto. Whiskey and Wine Trails has bought me a wee dram, a small bribe, and I hope that the quiz will be less evil than the one on the lock-in. Sorry. So Tom joined me for a Sunday night lock-in, a monthly lock-in I do for patrons. It's a vPub format, but there's no theme. It's just a relaxed chat and things, just a to and fro. And we always do a wee quiz at the end. They've birthed that whole kind of quiz theme thing. So for 2023, there's a kind of hidden theme to the quiz at the end. So if you stay to the end, you're not just trying to work out individual questions, but you're also trying to work out as it moves on what the theme of the quiz is as well. But that was happening on Patreon for a long time. My biggest brain trust, my biggest confidence, my biggest support network, my biggest, most invested community, and the reason that I'm here in front of you tonight on a Thursday night for over 5 years now is thanks to those very patrons that Tom was part of on Sunday night. Thank you all. I'll never tire of being grateful to you. Okay. Wee bit of housekeeping because something cool. Two cool announcements today, actually. I got a wee heads up about a new liquid antiquarian video. Why is that a big deal? Well, not much content comes out from Arthur and Dave, but when they do drop something, it tends to be something really deep dive, something really quite impactful, and something very thought-provoking. There's one that's just come out all to do with fermentation that really challenges. I had never heard of the product that they're covering. It's called Bub. And this is part of fermentation that was used up until the early 20th century. This is a traditional method that's documented in the annals of whiskey. And Arthur stumbled upon this, I believe, years ago, and has been building up towards this project that they just released today, where they take this ancient fermentation method and they go and collaborate with a distillery. Holyrood Distillery took them on, and they make it. Now, it flies in the face of SWA regulations. They have not made whiskey, but they went ahead and made this product. And it's a fascinating video. It's fascinating content. I have already dropped the link in the description box underneath. And if you're interested in watching that, you can watch it now if you like, of course. But you can pick that up anytime. It's already on the Liquid Antiquarian channel with Dave Broom and Arthur Motley having a bit of fun doing it too. Perhaps more interesting even than that for contemporary whiskey and the dynamics that's happening in whiskey today as opposed to historically, Ralphie shared a BBC broadcast that you can pick up on their podcast service on Spotify. And it's all to do with, they've titled it The Wild West of Whiskey. So it's covering all the things that I avoid on this channel. I don't want to talk about a whiskey cask investment. I just don't. I think it's dangerous as hell. I think the companies that are involved are unscrupulous. I think they are, I think they're cowboys, and I think they're preying on people who don't really know what's going on in whiskey. I think that they are investing investing with a very, very small eye in an ocean of vanilla casks that simply have no guarantee of increasing in value whatsoever. And look, it's just a bad idea. I don't want to bring it into the vPub. It's not what we're about. We're into drinking and enjoying whiskey. And as soon as whiskey is commoditized and becomes something that's kind of more valuable if nobody's drinking it, that doesn't do anybody any favors. Nobody's going to care about the quality of a whiskey that's never going to be tasted. One of the things that drives the quality of whiskey and the chasing of that craft and flavor forward and everything like that is people enjoying whiskey for the reason and the purpose that it was made, not to make folk profit. As soon as the industry competes with investors, everything becomes in a very dangerous, imbalanced state then, and we are now in a situation that it's been a bubble for some time, but I think it's becoming really quite heightened and overheated. So I have linked that podcast from Ralphie through his Patreon stream and through one of his patrons, one of his maltmates, and I've credited that underneath. So this is vitally important stuff. While I don't cover it on the vPub, that's a fantastic link to share, and it's a well put together, interesting and balanced wee BBC documentary too, and you might spot a familiar voice or two that's been employed for that. Jimmy Legg is saying they can collect all the Macallan and Dalmore they want. I'm happy those brands exist for these people. It's spreading though, Jimmy. Everybody's chasing this high net worth luxury goods, lifestyle placed luxury product. It's fashion, and the more look at what Diageo is doing right now. Diageo has just released their midterm, I think the announcement that went out on Diageo's YouTube channel today. I was skimming through it, and it's sickening. It's all just corporate speak, of course it is, but the word comes up again and again: premiumization, premiumization, premiumization. At what cost? Our cost. What they're doing is they've built up, because what they're talking about premiumization is that for the most part they're going to be focused on premiumization of their malts. The reason that they have a malt portfolio that's successful in order to premiumize in the first place is thanks to people like us, the malt drinkers. Not me, I only picked this up in 2005. The classic malts came out in 1988, and Diageo was releasing malt whiskey before that even. But the classic malts came out in 1988, and that was just at the uptick as things really started to accelerate in single malt appreciation and really people investing in brands. Macallan was already a known product back then. Glenmorangie's on the scene, famously Glenlivet, Glenfiddich, of course, and others too. Balvenie came out in the 1980s as well. So as people have become more and more aware of these brands, these good brands, that have been elevated by the enthusiast, impassioned drinkers back in the early days, the companies are then taking them away from us. The whole brand, they're not even kind of scaling it to have luxury place stuff, but still look after the invested drinker, keep their reputation high with people actually drinking the product. Well, they're not doing that. They're just taking the whole shebang and pointing it towards a high net worth target market. How long before that's oversaturated? Because it's also a very fickle market, and it's also one that's driven by fashion and trends. You'll notice I can't use the word boycott for Diageo on the channel. I didn't ever boycott Macallan. So boycott's not the right thing. But not talking about it much because none of it is pointed at me, that's not boycotting. That's just an inevitable end product. And I am tempted to just boycott it. For this topic tonight, I could have reached out and picked up a bottle of Lagavulin 8, for instance, but I chose not to. And I'll touch upon that a wee bit later. As far as I'm aware, there are no Diageo branded products in the offering tonight. Pretty sure about that. Welsh Toro's in. Good to see you, Welsh. How are you keeping, my friend? We have to understand that Diageo are a premium business. Whiskey is just a money-making product to them, stuff that returns for shareholders. There's no doubt. Diageo are a business, and they're focused, and that whole video today is focused on them reassuring the people that invest in their business. They're a business, absolutely. We're a people, and we can affect their business with our decisions. We can decide no, and we can vote with our feet. And we all would, every business out there would do well to remember that pockets, bank balances, wallets have very, very long memories. The game that they're playing is very short-term focused. It's as if that whiskey has never had a boom and bust cycle in the past, the way we're seeing things going just now. It's cynical, and it'll only last for a short amount of time. Whiskey Hog is saying, as is said, the more bling, the cheaper the product. Absolutely. Nobody cares about the quality of the product if the brand and the packaging sells it. Nobody cares. The One Glass Man is saying, cheers, Roy, today on location, Costa Rica. Good for you, Warner. I hope you're having a fantastic time. Costa Rica, that sounds pretty special. Justin Wan is saying, Diageo is a blending company now. As mentioned before, it's always been a blending company. Their single malts are almost like liabilities. No, I wouldn't say that now. They've seen that the volume of malt is still very small in ratio to blends, but the margin that they can make on malt versus what they can make in blends, even their premium blends, is very, very attractive. That's where they're moving. We can see it, and we can see it in the pricing structure. Anyway, we're trying to keep things fun and for beginners tonight. And there I go, dragged into the business. We will talk about the idea of a blending company and the concept of that, because of course we're going to talk about regions in a wee minute. Nick Keane is celebrating being a member from 25 months from New Zealand, raising a dram to all Burns Suppers hosts. Fantastic. And you're way ahead. You've already long since celebrated yours. But I'll raise a toast to you as well, Nick, and hope that you and Penny are doing fantastically well, my friend. Cheers. Ander Garcia is here. All goes up in price. I saw Tobermory 12 and Leipzig 10 in Spain for nearly €50. That's a wee bit too much, probably. But having said that, Leipzig 10, €50. There's an argument that that's probably the right price for it. I know you can get it cheaper, and I know it has been cheaper in the past. Same for Tobermory 12. See if people are bringing us good quality product with those specs, natural presentation, €50. Can we complain about that? It's £45, £46. That's RRP here under Garcia in the UK. I appreciate the dynamics like Brexit and rising costs of production here in the UK as well as everywhere else is maybe having an impact here. Graham Brown is saying, Aquavite, preach. Thank you, buddy. It's nice to have you in. It's wonderful always to have you around, Graham. I hope you're doing well. You and I were supposed to hook up this week, but we'll get there, won't we, buddy? As Kleinleash pointed at you, Aquavite, the cost, of course, dictates our immersion in whiskey products, but I want to enjoy all products. Glenn, I love your perspective. We want to try as much as we can, and we judge it on the value proposition and what it brings to us. Whiskey is here for us to enjoy as mortals. We cannot enjoy whiskey like everything else in life when we're dead. When we're dead, it's gone. The only thing that you can do is enjoy this thing. And the only thing that this thing can do is remind us what it is to be alive. There's no nutrition in this. There's no calories. There's no sustenance. I've said this before in the vPub, of course. We drink this for the wonderful experience. We drink this for the flavour and the enjoyment and that reminder of what it is to be mortal and alive. Making it into a product, taking it away from people, it's a people's drink, and putting it in the hands of people who are wealthier than most, well, let us have a rant about that and understand that we're not going to be happy with companies that do it, regardless of how much they wave it away with the magic wand of, well, we're a business and we've got shareholders to look after. Okay, well, off you go and do it. Anthony Lambert is saying, I just bought a Loch Lomond single grain peated for €24, a fantastic price for a very good whiskey. Just opened it. I'm glad that you're enjoying it. That's the green and black labelled one. It's been on the vPub before, and it's fantastic stuff. Peter Hunt is saying, good evening, all right. Sorry I'm late. Arthur and Dave had done a thing, and I had to watch it. #bub. You're very welcome, Peter. I'm glad you got to watch it. For anybody that hasn't seen it yet, of course, it's available on the Liquid Antiquarian channel, and there is a link in the description box below. Cheers, everyone. I'll try dropping in and out of the lounge throughout tonight. If you're trying to get my attention, just type Aquavitae at Aquavitae, and it should pop up orange, and I've got a better chance of grabbing it. Okay, let's get this thing on the road. I'm just going to roll the topic out to you, and I'm going to mention why I came up with this and why I came up with this budget of £199, because in the past when I've done collection videos, I've given myself a budget of £250, and even then you've kind of got to dial in and really carefully choose what you're going to pick. But if we're mindful of somebody that's just coming into whiskey for the first time, we've really got to be careful about what we are recommending, because if they discover that we're spending regularly 50, 55, 60 pounds plus on a bottle of booze, it's shocking to them, and I can understand that it's not something that they can feel that they can connect with easily. That's far too much money. So if I look at all the 5 regions, we'll get to that in a second. If I look at all the 5 regions and try and pick something from all these regions, I'm trying to find something that is going to give a good indication of the style from there. If I pick across the 5 regions, I've also got a good chance of covering most of the flavour profiles that exist within Scotch, at least an entry-level contrast type experience with flavour profiles. And I'm also going to be focusing very, very, very sharply on how much it's costing to do so. But it's also 2023. So when I was looking at this, and I was still spoiled for choice, when I was working on a budget of £250, the list was as long, it's just so long, and so many whiskies to pick from. And I said, no, it's 2020. Things are more difficult. We've all said we're going to cut down our spending. So I slashed it to below £200. So our target tonight is £199. That's our budget, to find something from every region in Scotland that covers all the flavour profiles. But I'm also mindful of the fact that this is not just for beginners, because this is a vPub. We want to also be talking about things that we can enjoy. It can be both. It can't be something that's on sale. I can't have leveraged flash sales and local discounts, loyalty schemes, anything like that. It had to be, I went on to the online retailers and I shopped around and I tried to find where these whiskies were at best price. And of course, it makes sense then to look at the online retailer that you're going to be able to buy the most from and cut down on the efficiency of postage and things like that. But bear in mind that you don't need to go out and buy a collection and spend £200 on 5 bottles of whiskey. That's just the concept, the topic, the content for tonight. What I'm talking about is give people a selection and they can pick their battles. They fancy something light and delicate, something big and bold, something sweet and rich, something spiced. That's what I'm trying to do. I want them to have £40 in their hands, £40, $45, €45, something of that order, and get a really good quality bottle of whiskey and something that we are drinking to, and we would have no shame and we would love and enjoy having on our shelf. So you'll see I've got my blank shelf here behind me. It's been cleared for tonight. And as I go through each region, I'm going to just grab it and drop it on that shelf. But we need to meet that budget of £199 tonight. If I don't meet it, I've failed. It's okay to fail because we'll still get to talk about lots of cool whiskies. But that's what I'm mindful of. Is it still possible to do it? The biggest reason, and you know this, that I've put the budget on this is because it really dials in the focus. It really makes you think. And if you're just picking and grabbing and you say, oh, it's almost there, you're not being forced to make any hard decisions. Sometimes what you have to do is make a hard decision and try and put yourself in a position of somebody that literally only has £40 to spend on a bottle of whiskey. When I started drinking whiskey in 2005, £40 was premium territory. I don't want to talk about the old days. We know that those are gone. It's 18 years ago, for crying out loud. But I understood how long it took me to get comfortable spending more than £25, more than £30 on a bottle of whiskey back then. It seemed odd to me, and it was only through whiskey teaching me about the quality of the drinking experience that the whiskey was lasting much longer than any other investment I made in alcohol. Or I say investment, I'm talking about something I could sit and enjoy with friends. The whiskey was there and it kept. And as I added other bottles to it, that gave me things to contrast. And through that accumulation, I then had a little mini collection. Through a little mini collection, I could share it with friends and I could bring them into whiskey too. And it just gathered from there. And back in 2005, I was buying these type of entry level whiskey. However, I didn't know about natural. I didn't know about chill filtration, the fact that it was being coloured. I was just going on flavour. If I'm bringing somebody into whiskey now, with the choice that we've got today, the natural choices that we've got today, I'm going to be putting extra effort into encouraging them to look at the natural stuff too. Of course I am. All of these gateway whiskies, these mass market whiskies, whatever you want to call them, the ones that are diluted, the ones that are coloured, fine. They have their place. I think we can do better. Reb is here. Mordecai saying Gateway Collection, Glenmurray 12, 48%. Glenmurray Peated, Deanston Virgin, Arran Barrel Reserve. Well, Arran Barrel Reserve is 43. Old Pulteney 12, 40% in the UK. Glencadam Origin Sherry Bourbon. That's the entry level NAS. All 6 under £35 and all for under £200. Reb, I've also got a bunch of fantastic recommendations from you on Patreon. And I've got Patreon up here, so I will be jumping in to talk about what the patrons have recommended as well. These are seasoned people, seasoned drinkers. That's fantastic. But I think you might be interested just how much effort I've put into the hard decisions I've made to keep it natural. So let's lots of people are throwing in their suggestions. This is why it's great. If you're watching on the replay, you can also pick up this live chat. It takes a few hours after the end of the broadcast in order for the live chat to render and come up, but it's coming up in real time, and you can watch this along with the real chat, and you can see these recommendations from Instant Warner. He's saying Campbeltown Coquerin 12, if you can find it, still sub £50. Highlands Deanston 12, all natural, fantastic. Islay Port Charlotte 10, all natural and 50%, fantastic. Islands Arran, Speyside, well, we know about Arran 10, it's all natural too, fantastic. Speyside Glenallachie 12, all natural. No Lowlander in my market at the moment, Aquavitae. It is tough for some. I've got one in the glass that isn't available everywhere yet, but it's true of everything from this region, I think. So we'll start off with one of the toughest regions, I think. Carson is saying, I've always keep some IBs from the same distilleries. Same ages around with different agings, ex-sherry only, ex-bourbon only. Great entry point for some of my people wanting to get into it. Fantastic stuff. And it's nice that you're reaching out a hand, guiding people in with those independent bottlers, teaching them what the concept of that is too and what they fulfill in the marketplace. Helen has got cracking starter, Helen. Ardna, AD £45, wonderful stuff. Glenmurray 12, 35. Buna Sturacher, £30. Glencadam Reserva, £40. Lenchick 10, £35. £185. She's saying kerchief. Have you managed that? Have you managed that? Glenmurray 12, though, is that not a 40%er? Buna Sturacher, you can pick that up for 30 quid. You're doing amazing. Maybe that's a local supermarket near you. But fair enough. Did I put the price of Sturacher down here? I think I did. When I was online, I saw the cheapest I saw online was £36.99. Well done, Helen. Good recommendation. Scott McIntyre is saying, even Roy, I'm regretting my decision to do dry January after all this whiskey chat, breaking it with a Longmorn 16 though. Well, be fair to you. We're at the 26th of January, Scott. You've given yourself a break. It's always good to have a break. It's always good to look after your health and be a wee bit mindful about these things. But if you're in the mood and you're enjoying it tonight, I doubt that you're going to sit back and finish off your long 116. You're going to enjoy it, and it's probably going to be all the better for the long wait, Scott. I hope you're enjoying it. Cheers. So let's jump into the region that I think is going to be one of the tricky ones to tackle tonight, especially when we've given ourselves, the limits that we've imposed. We're going to be looking for natural here. We're going to be looking for that low cost. We're going to be looking for something that is as available as possible. So right away, we're in Campbeltown, a really, really in-demand region. Only 3 active distilleries there right now. Springbank bringing out 3 brands, Hazelburn, Longrow and Springbank. Their sister distillery, Glengyle, bringing out Kilkerran. And then up the road, they've got Glen Scotia as well, bringing out a fantastic Renaissance range of core range whiskies that's getting better and better and better all the time. We're going to be spoiled by the stuff coming out of Glen Scotia in the future. It's upon those guys down there to bring good quality spirit that we can still afford and drink. I'm not sure what's in the glass tonight. I think it could be Glen Scotia, or the majority Glen Scotia, but we don't know. What I've got to start off in the Campbeltown region tonight, I'll take this away here, is I've got some Campbeltown Loch. Now, I've spoken about this because look at how dark this one is compared to the previous batch here. Nice and pale. This is not going to make the wee shelf there. Not tonight. Not right now. And there's a couple of reasons for that. This is good quality whiskey. I am not enjoying the darker one as much. The darker one tastes a wee bit sweeter and flatter to me. I personally feel for my own tastes that the 2 open bottles of the paler variants that I have are much more vibrant, much more alive, much more kind of interesting and detailed, just much more communicative. They're just better wee pours. It's the darker one that I've got in the glass tonight because I wanted to make sure that was the case. I'm only down just beyond the shoulder in the bottle. I'm still getting to know it. But this is slightly flatter, probably easier for a beginner, being honest. Wee bit sweeter, maybe some sense of it being a wee bit richer, I would say. Still an excellent whiskey. Still an excellent whiskey. And if that was the only one available, it would still be recommendable, let's say. If you see a paler colour one on the shelf, just grab it. In my opinion, the paler ones are even better. Why is it not making our shelf over here? Why is it not making part of our collection? This is from Springbank, and it comes in a Springbank bottle. And there is nothing on this to reassure us that this is natural whiskey. Now, before you say, oh, but all Springbank is very basically labelled, that's true, but all of the core range of Springbank, they go to the trouble of telling us how important it is to be natural colour and non-chill filtered on the back. It doesn't say that here. It doesn't say that here. Now, is it because of there's going to be sourced malt in this? They can't really... I don't think so. I just don't know why. I don't know why they've taken the decision, just laziness, forgetfulness, or something deliberate to not tell us why is this not natural. Now, of course, we can go in and we can look in Whiskey Base and we can look in our online resources and we can do all of those things. This doesn't come in a box, so all the information that we've got is on the bottle label. If it's not on the bottle tonight, I'm going to be asking questions. I have to ask questions of Mitchell's for this. Come on, guys, tell us what's going on here. We love it. It's selling well. This is a fantastic, successful product. It looks every bit like a bottle of Springbank, but this is not. This is Campbeltown Loch blended malt whiskey. But it does mean that all the malt that goes in there is from the Campbeltown region, so it is eligible for tonight. But I'm going to pick something over it. I'm going to pick this instead. And I know you're going to raise your eyebrows at me and say, really, Roy? This is Glen Scotia's double cask. This is the original double cask, which is American oak barrels to start with, and then Pedro Jimenez afterwards. So the finish is PX. Fantastic. But this is unchill filtered. I believe it tells us on there. I'm not very sure. But it is unchill filtered, and it's at 46% ABV. Unfortunately, this is coloured. There is caramel colour used in this. There is a natural release out that's fully natural at 46% ABV that is not coloured. It's the rum cask finish. But right now in the market, because it's a new product and there's a bit of buzz and excitement about it, the price is a bit higher. You're able to pick this up for £40 or sometimes a wee bit less. Whereas its rum cask newer expression tends to be priced a wee bit higher. Although the cheapest place I found in recent weeks was direct from Glen Scotia's online distillery shop. Why have I picked a product that's coloured? Well, it is coloured. There's E150 in here. But this is good whiskey. This is very good whiskey. And Glen Scotia are moving step by step, slowly but surely, in a natural direction. 15 and 18-year-old is going to be fully natural. Glen Scotia Victoriana is already there. The new double cask, the new one in the series of rum cask, is already fully natural. They're well on the way. It's only a matter of time before they just rely on the PX casks to give this darker colour and care not a jot, because they're selling to malt drinkers who love the product and love to talk about it and love to share it. Go natural on this one too. Given the fact that it's Campbeltown as a region, this is the best pick. I think value, when you're down at that end, when you're trying to get to the £40 mark and you're trying to get below the £40 mark, this one would be my pick. Let's pop it over there. The first one goes on the shelf. So where does that leave us in terms of budget? How much did I pay for this one? If we look here, the Glen Scotia Campbeltown double cask, the PX one, 46%, non-chill filtered. Like I say, it has got a daughter colour. I paid £39.95. Now, if I take my £199, divide it by 5 bottles over the 5 SWA regions of Scotch whisky, I come out at £38.20 or something like that. So I'm over budget by a pound or so. I'm just a wee bit over, but that's kind of within the range. I'm quite pleased about that, and I'm pleased that that exists in Campbeltown. Now, I appreciate that depending on where you are, you might have to pay a wee bit more for your Glen Scotia double cask, but it's also one that's available everywhere. It's usually on offer. Most retailers treat it well. They don't gouge and they don't abuse, in my experience. Hopefully it's out there and hopefully you can get it at a reasonable price too. Justin Wan is saying, Aquavita, love this style of presentation. You're talking about Glen Scotia. I think it could just be a wee bit better, but it's getting there. Alistair Gray saying 5 of Douglas Lane Remarkable Malts with 10% off, code £193. Brilliant stuff. 10% off. You're managing to leverage that, Alistair. I think it's a great shout, and I think the Remarkable Regional Malts is crazy. There could have been one for every single category I had here. In the Campbeltown region, it would have been the Gauldrons, which is Douglas Lane's pick on their Campbeltown Loch, and it would have been a great fit. And very, very often when it's available, comes in round about the right price level, between £40 and £50. If you're able to get 10% off code, fantastic. I have not. If it's a flash sale, if it's a discount code, loyalty card scheme, anything like that that's not kind of available to everybody that's buying online like me, it's not been included. These are the lowest retail, online retailer and bricks and mortar retailer prices I could find. Walter Mission is saying, well, if Glen Scotia is determined to put their foot next to Springbank, they need to walk the walk as well. So let Michael keep hitting that nail and we'll see it fully natural soon enough. This is going to be a team that needs to get, this is a board, everybody needs to get behind this thing. These are strategic decisions, but look at the writing on the wall, read the zeitgeist, read about where do you want your product to be placed, what do you want to be viewed as, all of these things. We're always nervous though that it gets taken out of our hands, we can't afford it anymore. But you know, we're fortunate today in whiskey that even when that happens, time and time again, we're reassured that something comes along and is ready to step into place. There's another 3 distilleries going to pop up before 2030 in Campbeltown. It's going to double in size in terms of variation, choice. Patience. Justin is saying, I'm talking about your presentation of your budget and prices. Fantastic. Good, Justin. And Tommy Almer is saying, I think I have to include Kilchoman, Mahir Bay. Good recommendation. Legic 10, great recommendation. Long repeated, fantastic. Maybe, heavens forbid, a Glenfiddich. Tom, if you're enjoying your Glenfiddich, let us know which Glenfiddichs they are. That's it. Share it in here. And what investment and effort of Glenfiddich put into making it natural. Glenfiddich is a mass market producer, no doubt about it. They do not make bad whiskey, they make good whiskey. It's how the whiskey makes its way from that cask into the bottle that sometimes can leave us wanting a wee bit more, especially when we have the luxury of being able to have tried real, unsullied, pure Glenfiddich. It's magical liquid. Whiskey on the West Coast is saying somehow Glen Scotia Double Cask is the same price as Victoriana in my market. Idiots, right? Not typical, I know, but I'll go Victoriana in that case. That's an easy choice to make. That's just nuts. Absolutely nuts. All right. So there we go. We're a wee few pennies over budget, but we're doing okay. Campbeltown's an easy and a quick one to get through because there's not a lot of distilleries to talk about. But what about if we go over the water? We go west of the Kintyre Peninsula. We take that ferry across to Islay. We have to acknowledge that Islay is in vogue. You know, in the space of 30 years, it's gone from something that nobody wanted to drink and whiskey they couldn't sell. It was only any good as a seasoning for blends, to be cruel. Back in the attitude in the 70s, late 70s and 80s. In fact, there's a fantastic video on YouTube called The Whiskey Island. And Bessie Williamson appears in that video. I think that's the video that she appears in. And she talks about how you wouldn't want to drink Islay malt or Lefroy, as she's referring to her distillery back then, as a single malt because it's too bold, it's too robust, it's too strong. But it does make a fantastic contribution to blends. That was the attitude. It really, really was. It's not where we live today. We love our strong, bold, flavorful whiskies, peaty or otherwise. So things have changed and have changed a lot. And with that huge interest in that swell and all brands from Islay, all the distillery brands, the prices have crept up. Not everywhere all of the time. But what it does mean is that we tend to be leaning a wee bit more on products like this. Port Askig is a single malt. This is not a blended malt whiskey. This has got an age statement on it. It tells us on the label, thank you so much, Elixir Distillers, that it is non-chill filtered with no added colouring. It's got an age statement. It's 45.8% ABV. Maybe that's a wee nod to Talisker or something, but we don't care because they're telling us it's non-chill filtered. So at 45.8, they're right on the limit of something that could kind of cloud over and go a wee bit cloudy. More on that in a little bit when talk about a very specific whiskey that is coming up next. But they feel that it's going to be stable at 45.8, but they know who their market is as well. And if this ends up a wee bit cloudy, they know that the malt drinkers won't care. And in fact, it's encouraging to a malt drinker to see something that clouds when it's chilled or gets some cool water added to it, because that tells us that all those fats and oils have not been taken out, texture, flavour, delivery mechanisms that they can be. This hasn't made it through, though, because this is an undisclosed distillery. We don't know what's in this. We can take a pretty good guess most of the time. It's only likely to be 2 distilleries in it, and out of those 2 distilleries, there's an 80% chance it's just one of them, one of the northern distilleries it's going to be, right? Doesn't matter. We don't drink it wondering what the distillery is behind it. We drink it for the malt experience it gives us. And this is a potent, smoky, young and vibrant malt that's pretty good value. It really is. It's quite good. Now, the Cask Strength one is a wee bit more expensive. There is a Cask Strength version, sorry. There's also regularly special editions that come out. They tend to be a wee bit pricier, but that 8-year-old is a stalwart. I think I picked this up. I don't remember. I didn't pay as much as it is now. I've had that maybe a year or two now. But if we look at the price of our the 8-year-old is £45, £44.99. So it's just a wee bit. It would push us over our budget a wee bit. It would have to be a strategic purchase. So what about this one? This does have a distillery name on it, and it is from Islay. This is Bunnahabhain's Stouriture. Now this is fantastic stuff. This is well executed stuff. Anybody that says Stouriture is not as good as the 12, fine. The 12-year-old is a legend already. Bunnahabhain 12 is legendary and still below £50. But the Stouriture brings this down below £40. This is a non-age statement, going to be younger whiskey in there, but still gives us a huge big hit of Bunnahabhain experience. Wonderful stuff. I enjoy this. I recommend it, especially at the prices that it's going for today. In fact, if you jumped onto one of the online retailers today and you tried to pick up this Stouriture, you'd pay £36.99, so well below that £40, and it's well within our target. One to recommend, but it's not making it through to the shelf. Why? Because this is not a typical Islay, is it? This is, if we're going to bring a beginner in and we're going to kind of generalize and put things into big buckets, we're going to want to give them something that is representative of that smoky, ashy, maritime, coastal, sometimes farmy, but really quite distinctive Islay style of malt whiskey. If you're going to put a non-age statement, Bunnahabhain out there as a recommendation, the Tochik would be the one to go for, or it's actually called Tochik Adana, which is the second Tochik. So it's another non-age statement version, and it just says Tocha Kada across the label. That you know that's the peatier version of this. Fantastic value, just a wee bit more expensive than this one, around about the 40 quid when you can get it. But honestly, something worth recommending. But what I'm going to put over on the shelf here, you speak to me, you shout loudly about this, you really do, you feed back to me. I don't talk about this distillery enough on the vPub, and there's a reason for that. This distillery for me, years ago, when I first started to drink it, good bottle, poor bottle, good bottle, poor bottle, poor bottle, poor bottle, good bottle. That was my experience. That's not happening anymore. We're talking about a distillery that was founded in 2005, the same time I actually came into whiskey. I started enjoying whiskey. So they are coming up on 18 years in 2023. And in fact, for Fashil last year, this distillery released a 16-year-old malt whiskey that was wonderful. I can't get it, I can't buy it, I can't afford it, but that was the best Kilchoman I've ever sipped. But there is a malt whiskey core range from them that fits exactly in this lineup. This is their Mahir Bay. You can see that this is sealed, and if I could get the camera to focus just for a come on camera, do your wee best here. There we go. 46% ABV, and look at here, just at the bottom of this blue label, non-chill filtered and no colour added. The boxes are ticked. We have a natural malt whiskey here. People are getting frustrated at Kilchoman for not coming out with an age statement and things like that. But Kilchoman have had to fight year after year after year, and it's only in recent years that they're finding some stability. And as they find that stability, other challenges come in, like resources, barrels, and fighting with trying to get their autonomy and control over all of their assets and things like that. But they're there now. And they're also there, I believe, with a much more consistent product when it comes to quality. Yes, it's single malt whiskey. It's going to vary batch to batch, even the large outturns like Mahir Bay, but it's okay because their baseline for quality is much higher than it was, in my opinion. Let's pour a wee tiny drop of this. It's the room is already just suddenly full of peaty aroma. It's softer though. I was expecting a bit more ash in there based on my experience. I've tried this recently in a bar, and I was very pleasantly surprised by it. It's been a little while since I've had the standard Mahir Bay. I've had the Cask Strength on the shelf for a while. This is a standard 46% one. It's been a while, so I invested in this based on that bar pour, and based on you guys reminding me how good this has become and how much you're enjoying it. Brand new, just out the bottle. This isn't a review. This is first impressions. This is mellower. There's less sharpness here. There's less jagged edges here that we would be used to with a Mahir Bay. Things are mature now. You just feel like they're just getting better at it. Maybe leveraging more mature stocks and the vattings and things, whatever they're doing. Cheers, everyone. Perfect. Perfect example. Not dominated by any cask. No wine, no sherry, no PX, no Madeira, nothing like that. This is clean. This is ex-bourbon in profile, letting that Islay flavour shine. It's much less sooty than it used to be. It feels that the peat is quieter here, just mellower. It's not as high in peat, I would say, as some other Islay distilleries, but there's still plenty punch here. Still lots of flavour. Texture's good. The reason that I'm still tasting it now is because of that texture. It's hanging around on my palate here. Helped not in part by the fact they don't chill filter it, and they keep it at that 46% ABV. With ease. This, at its price point, makes it onto the wee collection shelf. It's easy for us to step over to Islay and pick up this whiskey and add it to our collection and recommend it to a beginner. But how much has it cost us? Have we been able to get it below that £38.20 per bottle target? Well, no. Cheapest I was able to find Kilchoman Machir Bay is 41.94. I don't want that to be seen as expensive. I think that's fantastic value for what's become a super solid core range whiskey. And if you doubt me, I'd go as far to suggest that you could sip that alongside the Ardbeg 10s and the Port Charlotte 10s. And I think it can go toe to toe with those age stated products now. I don't think the youthfulness is nearly as apparent as it used to be. This has become a real classic Islay whiskey in a distillery that's only 17 and a half years old. So you can see we're slipping over, we're over budget. It is what it is. We'll talk about that as the night goes on. But there we go. Kilchoman Machir Bay makes it into my collection. And hopefully I've managed to appease a lot of you guys out there, a lot of the Kilchoman fans that's been banging the drum about the rising quality coming out of that farm distillery on Islay over recent years. And you feel constantly that I don't speak enough about them. And it's true. There's just so much whiskey to talk about that it's probably right I haven't given them enough. Welsh is saying Kilchoman are no longer fringe. They are a special part of the Islay ingredient. Welsh, it means a lot that you would say something like that. I know you're experiencing whiskey. I know you've got an opinion. You know your way about a glass. So when you step up and say something like that, somebody who's happy to call things out when it's not to your belief true, that's encouraging for me and everyone else. One of the really important things is that the folk that are in here and are wizened, they've been around whiskey for a bit longer, that they stay open, that they stay kind, and they share their wisdom, they share their experiences, and they try to help people that are coming into whiskey today. That's what this community does brilliantly. Right now, in this lounge, in this chat, I imagine it is happening. Helen is saying, here's to our return to Islay in 9 months' time. Helen's counting down the days for our third trip, our hat trick over to Islay. Rob Smith is saying, just poured a dram of Kilchoman Madeira cask. Fantastic. A belter of a whiskey. Pay a wee bit more for that, but my goodness, it works really well with that peaty Kilchoman spirit. I think it's one of the best, honestly. I don't know if it's the most recent one you've got, but it's a treat. The whiskeyographer is saying the recent Sanix and Lochgorms are stunning. So Sanix is their more entry-level kind of sherried style, and Lochgorm is their annual release of a sherried style Oloroso, typically maturation. Bit more expensive, but all natural presentation as well. And the colour of those whiskies, you can celebrate them, much like the Madeira, that rich mahogany colours. It's gorgeous. Whiskey with Molly say, not only are Kilchoman making great liquid, they show time and again that they really care about what they are producing. They really do. You only need to go there, and you only need to ask. We were very fortunate. We got Anthony took us round. The team at Dramface went over last year, and myself, and he took us round, and he was very candid. He was brutally candid about so many dynamics and challenges that he's seeing, but you could also see the fire in his eyes. He was still fully on board with the whole Kilchoman project after all of these years. Now his sons are on board, and they have been for a long time as well. It's got that feeling about it, and it's now got that kind of brand value proposition that you start to know that it's less try before you buy for Kilchoman. If you're buying modern releases, contemporary releases of Kilchoman, the risk is no longer there. Any feelings for the Kilchoman Casado? Planning to get one. I haven't tried the MM Karsten. It's difficult for me to try them all. I haven't even seen or had a chance to try even a dram of it. So it's completely new to me. If you do get it, I hope it's a good one. Anyway, I hope that my advice about Kilchoman, you don't need to try before you buy as much as you used to do, proves to be true. Anyway, well done, Kilchoman. Cheers, everyone. The fact that you can pick up an all-natural, good quality Islay malt whiskey for in the early 40s today is reassuring, and it proves that there's always whiskey out there for us. The team at Kilchoman says, Helen, we're all top drawer. Such a welcoming and warm place. You get a sense from the staff as well, don't you, what it's like to work there and how they believe in it. But let's take a wee breather. Let's take a step aside. If you're bringing a beginner into whiskey and he's looking at 40%, 43%, 46% and wondering why are all the percentages different? And then you talked about the concept of cask strength. Is there any way that you can introduce something cask strength into the mix to bring a little bit of fun into whiskey? You know, wow, it's so hot, it's so powerful, it's so potent. Yeah, but you take this dropper, you take this jug, and you add a little bit of water, and you bring it down drop by drop, and you can play with the whiskey, and it's great fun, and you end up with 5 different whiskies in the same glass or bottle because you're having fun playing with water every now and again. Cask strength whiskey is an inevitability. If this beginner, whoever he or she might be, stays into whiskey for long enough and follows their journey, they will end up in the cul-de-sac that is cask strength whiskey. It's inevitable because, and it's not about the alcohol, it's not about the potency of the liquid, it's about the flavour delivery that cask strength brings. And the ability to preserve that natural element is so much more stable at higher ABV, so it doesn't cloud nearly as easily, and it's much less likely to be messed with. And yet, excited by a bottle that's been around for a long time, quite honestly. Famously, when I was way back when I was just getting into whiskey, or just let's say just getting my geek on and reading about whiskey, I remember Jim Murray going nuts about this and giving it a ridiculously high score. I read on Master of Malt actually that it was 97 points he gave. And I kind of shrugged and smiled at that because I remember the price of this back then and thinking that this was a premium product, but actually this is not. This is 50% ABV, and this is the Islay Cask Strength. Okay, so the Islay is a well-known brand. We don't know what the malt whiskey is in this, much like the Port Asking that we see, but it's Cask Strength 58% ABV. Now, I paid for this. Wait till you hear this. I need to find it here. £43.94 for Cask Strength Islay whiskey. We know that it's 58% ABV and we trust that. We know it's from Islay. We know it's single malt because it tells us all of this on the bottle. That's true. But what it doesn't tell us on the bottle, £44 whiskey, look at the colour of it. You only get that colour in whiskey through really expensive casks. Especially when they're selling it at £44, you know it has to be quite young whiskey. It's not what's happening here. This has been dosed with colour. And the thing that backs that up is it doesn't tell us on the bottle that it's natural colour. Not anywhere. There's all sorts of description about the whiskey and where the name the Islay comes from. A resident of Islay is an Islay. It actually says on the back, a true man from Islay. Well, I believe that true women from Islay can be Islay as well. But there you go. That's why they're calling this the Islay. But it doesn't say anything about the state of the colour on the bottle. So I'm suspicious right away. But rather than me throw dirt from a distance, I bought this whiskey. And earlier this week, as you can see, I opened this whiskey. Took a wee tiny sip out of it, raised an eyebrow and thought, aye, not bad. We can talk about this. Then today, I took a bigger chunk out of it as well, because I wanted to do something to talk about the other thing that's not on the label, chill filtration. So I poured this earlier today and I dosed it with a good chunk of cool water. Now, it has got a very, very slight haze to it, not much, but just a wee bit of a haze. But I can still clearly read text through that whiskey. This is still clear. This is intact. I would suggest that this is chill filtered. Why? Why? 58% ABV? Who's their target market? Somebody that wants the whiskey to stay clear, somebody that doesn't understand what that cask strength term is supposed to mean. By the way, it's not a definitive term, but it's chill filtered. How do I know it's chill filtered? Well, I grabbed one of my whiskies of 2022, an absolute belter of a whiskey, the 2022 release of Bunnahabhain's 12-year-old, which tells us on the label that it's non-chill filtered and natural colour. And it's a gorgeous colour too. Now I hold the Bunnahabhain in this hand and the Islay in that hand. Can you see the difference there? So the Bunnahabhain, I cannot see through it. It's completely clouded over and the Islay is still clear. When you pour the Islay into a glass, it's the colour of iron brew. It's really bright orange. It's caramel. It's caramel. It is chill filtered for a 58% product. I just don't get it. I don't understand. Now, the cost of adding caramel and chill filtering is negligible, nothing or pennies. I get it. But the cost of taking a product that's natural and cynically being deceitful with it is dangerous. I don't think it's right. I just don't understand why they do it. I think that they maybe think that they can sell more whiskey when it's nice and dark like this. Sorry, but your customer is becoming more and more informed all the time. And if they're picking up a 58% whiskey, the chances are they're going to take time to understand a wee bit about it. Not everybody all the time, but that's the type of whiskey that's presented to enthusiasts. Islay, single malt whiskey, 58% cask strength. Let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. Let's give it a wee taste. It's had some cool water in it. It's been sitting here for a while. It smells every bit, to me, like Colila. That's what I would compare this to. Young Colila. There is a kind of solventy side to this. There's a pneumic side to this. There is youth to this. It's not particularly jagged. There's water added to this. It's probably helping. When I tried it earlier in the week, just a little sip of it, I actually found it quite easy to get on with and quite easy to sip. Quite easy. But I think it could be better if it was natural. Honestly, I'm just always going to say that. I'm always going to be put off by that. And I'm always going to taste what I recognize as caramel and whiskey. I can't necessarily do that blind. No, if you give me two whiskies and the blue glasses, black glasses, and say which one's got caramel, I'm not going to be able to pick it out every time. I don't think anybody truly can. Maybe somebody with a palate much better than mine can. But as time goes on and you start to dial in more and more with your whiskey, you can taste what caramel colour does to bottles of whiskey. And you start to associate it with negative things. And there is a bit of flattening, rounding, bittersweet, burnt cinder toffee type thing going on with this. So if we sip, I'm not comparing apples for apples because this Boon of Havant is very heavily sherried. But this is the one that's had cold water in it, as you can see, completely clouded over, never to recover. If you use room temperature water, you're not going to have this issue. So if you use water to dilute your whiskey and it bothers you that it starts to go this kind of cloudy color, just use room temperature water and you're fine. Magical, fruity, raisin, brighter fruit than I remember last time I tried this with the water in it. None of that kind of sickly sweet saccharine taint to it that the other one has. But it's not valid for tonight because it's clearly an expensive whiskey. It's close to £80. It's an expensive thing. It's an annual release. I used it only as an example to show you what happens with clouding. That whiskey will not be wasted. That will be sipped later after the vPub tonight. So I digress a wee bit. I was trying to go and push the envelope a wee bit and show different concepts. I even started to dabble in the independent bottlers and things like that. But I think you suddenly add too much complexity into this beginner scenario where you're just going to douse them with information and they're going to be a wee bit tuned out, right? So you want to keep it neat and things. So as we keep it neat, let's move over to another, as already has been mentioned in the chat tonight, another tricky region in the Lowlands. Dominic Fife is saying Finlagan Cask Strength is a better bet at 58% at £48. I would suggest if they're offering it a more natural colour, Dominic, I think you are right. There's one I wanted to mention there. Jeff Whiskey saying, I know as a newbie, I didn't even pay attention to the different ABVs and thought they were all the same. That's right. These are concepts that have to dawn on you or somebody has to guide you. The Whiskey Franco saying, have the Boona 12 Cask Strength arriving tomorrow. Very excited. Whiskey Franco, please feed back to me what you think of that, but I don't think you're going to be. If you like in sherried whiskey, sherried Boona specifically, that bold, robust spirit, it's not a delicate spirit. And from a sherry cask, I think it's a treat. My German online trader has both Elix marked as coloured. Absolutely, Falscraft, they are. In Germany, you have to add the statement with colour which is mit Forbstoff, I think. Mit Forbstoff. Anthony Dunn has bought me a dram. Anthony, you star. He's saying first Cask Strength whiskey that got me into the world of stronger ABV was the Redbreast 12 Cask Strength. Never looked back after that. Love Irish as an intro to whiskey. A lot of people love the Redbreast Cask Strength. Just keep an eye on batch variation over the years, and I hope that it stays strong and good quality. Anyway, let's look at the Lowlands. For a while, there was pretty slim pickings from the Lowlands, right? Bladnoch was basically on life support for a long time. Glenkinchie was kind of always there, 43% standard 12-year-old that replaced their original 10. And Auchentoshan is pathetic. It's the only way to say it. It's a fantastic distillery that makes good malt whiskey, triple distilled Lowland whiskey, matures it, everything's done well, right up until the point that they take out the cask and put it in a bottle. There are very few official Auchentoshans that's worth even looking at. The Bartender's Malt and Irish Statement one was higher ABV though. There's a bit more interest in it, a bit more bite, a bit more communicative side to it. But the rest of it, especially stuff that's out there, washed, stripped, and coloured at 40%, there's a reason I don't talk about it in the vPub. It's hard to find stuff that you truly love and enjoy. I'm sorry, Auchentoshan, I love your distillery. I love the fact that it exists and it's there. I just hate the way it's treated, and I hate the official bottlings that's put out from it. Same can be said of your sister distillery over in Islay of Bamoa. Occasionally, they do put out fantastic stuff, similar story. Most of the time, it's just dire. Beam Suntory are capable of doing good stuff. We're very fortunate to have Ardmore making fantastic whiskey out there. We have to buy it from Indies, though. And Glengarry is looking the positive whiskey in the stable, honestly. But Auchentoshan, I just didn't even look there, which is crazy because a beginner, somebody coming into whiskey, the chances are that's the type of thing that they're going to pick up. So where did I go in the Lowlands? Well, the first thing I did, this is a sealed bottle, and I won't open it tonight. But the reason that I'm showing you this one is that this is their core range. I've got a few from this distillery already on the collection over there, and I'm interested in it. All of these are young whiskies, and they have yet to kind of stretch and show their strength, I think. But they're doing an okay job with it. First fill bourbon, STR casks, and all of this. Very potent sherry casks being leveraged as well down in Loch Lee in Ayrshire. Very topical right now because, of course, famously they say that Robert Burns worked on this very farm back in the 18th century and wrote some of his most famous works while he was located there. Fantastic stuff. But what kind of whiskey do they make? I have to say, it's still to show us its true form. They've done an amazing job of making very young whiskey very easy to drink through the casks that I'm talking about here. Our barley is their core range, and I think it's pretty good. I think it's really pretty good. It's also the least expensive. I paid for this, our barley, let me see, $44.95. So I paid £45 for this. And there are potential that you could maybe pick it up a wee bit cheaper here, there, and everywhere, but I paid £45 for this one. So it's a wee bit overpriced, but it's still one to look out for. And it's a great example of what's happening in the Lowlands. Amazing renaissance. You might hear more about this later in the vPub tonight, especially if you stay till the quiz at the end. Here's another example. This is another core range. This is okay, I'm not going to read it out, but it's MCDXCIV. Well, I did read it out in the end. Enough to say that we just call this the 1494. Okay, Roman numerals for 1494, which is a reference to Friar John Corr, the first ever mention of whiskey distilling in Scotland in 1494. Of course, when the king asked to procure 8 balls of malt in order for Friar John Corr to make aquavitae. That's what this core expression is named after. 46% ABV. Naughty. You don't talk about natural colour, Lindors, on the bottle. You don't talk about non-chill filtered. I had to go to the trouble of scanning the QR code to discover that very basic information. That should be on the label, especially if you're not putting in a tube or a box. It has to be there. It's not going to take up any real estate. Just put it on the label. Is that an oversight? I don't know. But Lindors, you're doing it, so it needs to be on there. It tells us on the website that that's the case. It tells me on other resources online that this is natural. This is a good price now. And this Lindors came in at £43.10, only just a wee nudge over our target for tonight, but it's something that I would be excited about for in the Lowlands going forward. The one I picked to put forward as a representative of the Lowlands, I would love to pick a Bladnoch, but I can't afford it. We can't afford it. I would love to pick a Glenkinchie, but it's not natural. It's from Diageo. They don't care. I picked something that's starting to become a bit mature now. Look at this. I'm getting through this. I'm enjoying this. Kingsbarns Dream to Dram. 46% ABV. I believe that it does tell us on the label here that it is natural colour and non-chill filtered. I believe actually it's hidden away up here. It's on the bottle, it's enough, but it says natural colour and non-chill filtered up on the neck round here. So this is fully natural product. The reason I'm getting through this is that this is probably the cleanest, easiest, most balanced, best put together. Is it arguably the most mature now these days? I don't know. I don't know. It's just become quite a lovely, creamy, light, delicate, easy to drink, easy to appreciate Lowland malt whiskey. And this Dream to Dram, arguably, is in with some nod to the Lowland style. Clean white fruit, lychee, clean, cool, creamy, porridge, malty aspect, oily, floral, even lemon oil. Lots of lemon tonight. But just not, it doesn't have too much of that saccharine taint, doesn't have too much of that new makiness to it. It's there. You can still appreciate that this is quite a young whiskey, but this is very easy. This is very easy. James Hope is in tonight. Good to see you, James. He's saying you'll know it better than me. But I remember trying the Good Spirits Company Kingsbarns a year or two back and being very impressed. That was super young, but that was the one that brought that creamy oiliness, James. Yeah, I seem to remember you were in Glasgow, and I think that we might have even spoke about that. I've still got that bottle here. Very young Kingsbarns, 3 years old Kingsbarns, Cask Strength in the high 50s in terms of ABV, but it brought that lovely, clean barley pop. And it's one of those privileges that we have with these new distilleries coming about. It brings this spirit. It's the only time that we're going to be able to drink it like that. When it's new like that and they're putting it out for sale in the future, they're going to keep it and they're going to mature it longer. And that'll just become something that you can only ever try via cask sample or something like that. It's very unlikely you're going to be able to get your hands on a decent outturn of a very young 3-year-old spirit that's put together like that with that determination, let's say, for quality. That was a really encouraging sign for Kingsbarns. But this Dream to Dram, I think it's starting to come of age a wee bit. If you buy this, know that you have to have an appreciation and you have to know that you do enjoy younger spirit. But this is starting to get to the point now that this is good enough to start going toe-to-toe with products that are a wee bit older than the whiskey that's inside this. Great stuff. Just a great attention to care. Seem to be one of these distilleries that's getting better with each outturn, with each batch of this Dream to Dram, even you could argue. But this is the one that makes the collection. So let's see how we're doing on price. We're a wee bit over. We've got £117 left. How much have I spent on this Kingsbarns Dreams to Dram? Well, I've spent, oh my goodness, it's getting bad, isn't it? £42.85. We're over again after the purchase from the Lowlands. It's one of the lowest cost of the new distilleries, core range products. £42.85 is a reasonable price for it. It's a wee bit more here, there, and everywhere. Some people charging 45, between 45 and 50. But you can pick it up online for £42.85 today. But now that leaves us with only £74.26 to go to our final two regions. As we go to our final two regions, I want to talk to you. I want to talk to the beginner that comes into whiskey, somebody that's coming in and saying, well, what's all this about regions? Speyside is fruity and spiced, and Highlands tend to be fruity and cleaner and maltier and can be floral, and West Coast Highlands can add a bit of salinity and a coastal element, and then the islands can build on that as well and sometimes use a peated element. Then you've got Islay that's fully peated and robust. Campbeltown that have that lovely funk that we tend to talk about in a modern context. A lot of people don't enjoy that word, but we know when we've got a face over that lovely industrial, sometimes dirty and challenging, coastal, farmyard agricultural, all over the place, but very interesting, complex and characterful Campbeltown style. Then the light, grassy styles that was typically associated with Lowland distilleries. And obviously that's all bunkum now, we say, don't we? Because those existed in a time when blending was king. Blending remains king. It's becoming dethroned as time goes on, but blending still remains king. But if you're blending, you need to have consistent pools of ingredients. The distillery needs to be making to a consistent flavor profile. So this distillery character concept was built from that. And there are records going back to decades gone by where the blenders literally have the distilleries listed with their distillery character and profile in place. And they put a value on that depending on how in demand it was and how much it was celebrated by the blenders. And that tended to fall into these categories that we kind of know today, more or less. Speyside, the Highlands, the Islands, the Western Highlands, but it's all part of the Highlands. Campbeltown, Islay, the Lowlands. That's the 5 regions that I'm sticking to tonight, which is the 5 SWA regulated areas. So I'm not dividing up the Highlands into the Highlands and Islands or whatever, or West Coast, Northern, Southern. Highlands is massive, so complex. But we do need to talk about it, the sense of regions in a contemporary context. When single malt is put forward and it's not focused on blending, the distilleries are all trying to bring out as wide and varied a range as possible from their own malt. So they start to dabble with peated campaigns. If they have a peated campaign all year round, they start to dabble with unpeated. They start to switch up and change things like maybe barley and maybe yeast if they're really experimental, but certainly they're going to dabble in different fermentation durations, different cut points after distillation, different distillation times and regimes. Certainly they're going to dabble even more likely in different cask maturation styles. Bourbon cask, STR cask, sherry cask, wine casks, all sorts of fortified wine casks. They're going to play and experiment in order to bring us a good varied range. That means that today, as we come into whiskey, that concept of regionality is kind of outdated. But it's still valuable. It's still valuable to consider the history of whiskey, and it's still useful for somebody coming in and appreciating classic styles. And that's kind of what I've tried to keep an eye on tonight in this collection. So far, I think we're doing okay. We've got some Campbeltown elements to our Glen Scotia double cask. Absolutely. We've got certainly a clean, lovely Islay in that Colholm Machier Bay. And we've got a nice, light, delicate spirit in the Kingsbarns Dream to Dram from the Lowlands. So I think we're doing okay. I noticed that we'd broken 400 people tonight. You guys are stars. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. Thank you for your support. Remember, if you're picking this up on the replay, all the barflies that support me every weekend, week after out, means that if you do pick it up on the replay and you cut it into chunks, you're not sitting through ads to watch Aquavitae content. And that's thanks to everybody that's clicked that join button to support me here on YouTube. Thank you to you all. Gary Carew is in. Good to see you, Gary, saying I'll pop up. We'll drag Aquavitae and Hellswood out for a dram or 10. Oh, you thinking, is that you talking to Jimmy Legg and he's threatening a criminal over, isn't he? I've not heard much from Jimmy tonight. I wonder if he's, is it the very first, it's the very first thing on the bottle, Duff. Yeah, you talking about Ben Riach? That has Duff written on the top of the bottle. I don't know the context, Jimmy. Aye, but we do hear there is a rumour that Jimmy is considering coming to Scotland this year. That would be amazing. Falscraft is saying, do they still do the Dream at Kingsbarns? Isn't the Balcomie their standard? No, the Balcomie is a slightly different profile. Dream to Dram and Balcomie, as I understand it, you might need to correct me, Falscraft. Balcomie has not replaced Dream to Dram. It's exactly in the concept of what I'm talking about. Balcomie, I think, uses sherry casks. Some sherry casks in there. Not sure. But no, you can buy Balcomie and you can buy Dream to Dram, I believe. Dominic Fife is saying, and it's Fife Barley, a local barley release. Fantastic. Dominic, interesting that you're You've pointed that out, and your surname is Fife too. Different spelling, but fantastic. Alistair McPhail is here. Good to see you, Alistair. How nice to see you. And I first tried that King's Barnes out of an SWA filing cabinet. Wow. I bought a bottle the next day. What a fantastic thing. Good that you're enjoying it as well. I enjoy a younger spirit when it's good aquavitae. I wonder if this would be something that Jimmy Legg could enjoy. Something as light as this. I know you like your big character folk, bold and robust spirits, Jimmy. Just that lovely sweet lemon oil, almost a wee bit of kind of limoncello aspect to this is lovely. Sweet without being sickly sweet. What, no daft mill? Jimmy Jazz is saying, yeah, I wish. Wonderful spirit, but not in the realm of anything that we can afford. And even if we had £100 plus for a bottle of daft mill these days, would be chasing ghosts, unfortunately. Black Fen is saying, I reckon there's a Loch Lomond bargain on the way in Aquavitae's list. I'll let you off the hook with that one, Black Fen. Not tonight. I think I would want to, especially when I'm approaching the Highlands, right? The Southern Highlands, Loch Lomond Distillery, doing fantastic stuff. RRP 40 to £45 of that order, but we're regularly picking up Loch Lomond 12 and Schmurren and Schmoen for less than £40. Certainly fulfills the remit tonight. And the only thing we need to kind of criticise them for is that they are still reliant, much like the Glen Scotia double cask over there, on colour. But when I get to the Highlands region, we are so ridiculously spoiled for choice that it's easier for me to find natural product to put in place. So as much as I love Loch Lomond, support the Renaissance there, love to see what they're doing, love the experimentation, and you know how much I love Black Fen, you know how much I love that Chardonnay yeast stuff. My goodness, it's an elixir of life. They don't make an appearance tonight. Graham Fraser saying, good evening, Barfly friends, just heading home from a Carnmore tasting tonight. You're a busy whiskey journeyman, Graham Fraser, but it's good to have you in the vPub as you head home. Hope you've got your headphones in and you're feeling the warm glow of the dram. I'm typing the same amount. You're ignoring me, says Jimmy Legg, and he's used his Barfly celebration to draw attention. I'm not ignoring you, my friend. I am missing you. I do. People compliment me on my ability to keep up with the chat, but really that's not what I'm doing. So if I offend anyone, and the amount of times that I go on after the event, it's on the replay and I'm doing comments and replying and things, and I see people in the chat that I just feel so sad that I missed a lot of people and I didn't get to welcome some Kent faces, some friends, some familiar names. So believe me, I do. I'm looking out for you, Glenn Duncan, Kilted Drummer Gary, Whiskey with Molly Ben. I'm looking out for all of you. Ben is saying Dream to Dramas, Heaven Hill, First Fill, and STR. Breaks. So there is STR in there. Good stuff. It's not too cask heavy, by the way. It's nicely balanced. Drinking a Linkwood 11, says Hoyt. Good to see you in, Hoyt Hempel. He's saying 11-year-old sherry finish, Cask Strength from Mossburn. Sounds like you're enjoying it. To tell us about it, I hope you are, Hoyt. And Tommy Elmer is saying, when I first saw your thumbnail, I thought it was going to be under 200 each for the bottles. I know. What kind of beginner whiskies is that? My goodness. I need to do better with the thumbnails then, Tom, don't I? No, I'm trying to buy all 5 bottles from all 5 regions, natural whiskies, all the profiles, or as many profiles as I can cover, and buy all of them and deliver them for less than £199. But as you can see, after I've just shared that Lowlands whiskey, we are at only £74 and £26 left to cover the last 2 regions. So it's proven to be a wee bit tricky. So let's see as we move into the biggest region in Scotch whisky, or what used to be the biggest region in Scotch whisky. What's really interesting now, I should be able to walk into where the most concentrated whiskies exist in this landscape, Speyside, and have my pick of good whiskies to choose, right, in order to solve this natural, entry-level, good quality, integrity whiskey that we can afford, and it's generally available. But you'd be shocked how difficult it was. Speyside, I actually ended up finding to be one of the most difficult. It wasn't the most difficult to pick my favourite. That was almost already pre-selected. When I was thinking about this concept, this was one of the whiskies I wanted to hold up and say, I'm enjoying this. But when I was trying to look at alternatives, also runs things that could challenge it, my goodness, it was pretty tricky. but I tried. So I ended up in the similar style of, in the similar spirit of Portaskeg and the Elac that we had earlier, these kind of undisclosed malts. Let's be careful. I've got 4 glasses on the go now. That's my Campbeltown Loch. That's my Dream to Dram. And I've got a couple of great clean glasses here too. Oh, that's my Dream to Dram. So what's this one? Oh, that'll be... Okay, Dream to Dram and Mahir Bay. You kind of get those two confused. So here's another one here. This is from the people at Atom Brands. I haven't opened this yet. I bought this on the back of a Dramface review, actually. It was Gilbert. Going from memory, Gilbert reviewed this. And I was kind of curious because look at what it has here. There's an age statement on it. It has a 48% ABV. You know, it looked like a decent proposition for the price. It's called Christmas Cake and Dark Chocolates, Medjool Dates and Cinnamon. They've now changed it to make it less Christmassy, and it's called Fruit Cake instead of Christmas Cake. But all the rest of the specs stand. We still don't know which distillery this is from, but for an 8-year-old whiskey, I'm going to suggest this is coloured. I'm also going to be nervous that even at 48% ABV, that this is chill filtered right up until the point that, thank you, they put it. It's very small. It's written very small text there. You can see if it focuses down here at my finger between the barcode and the units panel there, it says non-chill filtered. But I do believe it's coloured. Just an 8-year-old whiskey. It's, you know, if they were really going to celebrate that colour in an 8-year-old whiskey, they would be telling us that it's natural, right? So, okay. But this one, £39.95, £40 for an 8-year-old whiskey. This isn't opened yet, and I'm not going to open it tonight. I might find a use for this in an upcoming vPub. I think it's going to be interesting to get to know this whiskey. And the Speyside whiskies kind of slip out of our reach in terms of affordability and things like that, and just because of they're mostly owned by Diageo and Pernod Ricard, who just don't care, as we've talked about at length in the past before. We're just seeing not a lot of representation of good quality malt whiskies, unless it's from somewhere that's a bit more independent in spirit. This is the one that makes the Speyside cut easily. I've given this wee distillery a hard time over the years. I've talked about, oh, it's all a cask story. It's a cask. It's all about cask. By the way, that's not a negative thing. It's just a fact. They're reliant on casks, but they're doing great stuff and they're doing everything naturally. Talking about Glenallachie, and this is their 8-year-old, 46% ABV, and it tells us here that it's natural colour and non-chill filtered on the label. Everything that we love. Here we go. Here, no colour added. Around at the other side, non-chill filtered. This is fantastic. 8-year-old product. A wee bit divisive for a lot of people when it came out. For me, this is the closest that, and it changes every year. The 10-year-old Cask Strength release from them is the one that disappears very quickly, the one that's in demand, the one that people love. Of course it is. We're enthusiasts. We love the Cask Strength stuff, and it gets snapped up like crazy. It's decent value too, and it's getting better and better and better if it is becoming a bit more cask influenced as time goes on. That's understandable. But this to me was like an entry-level, age-stated, affordable version that to me was similar to some of their 10-year-old Cask Strength releases when it came to profile. Certainly it's the closest I could find at an affordable price that gives me what I imagine a rich, decadent, engaging Speysider can be. I have enjoyed getting to know this wee 8-year-old. I am glad to have this, and I'm very glad that this is in Glenallachie's range and available from the Speyside region. An honourable mention, a very strong performer that almost made it up there. Only beaten out on price is Craigellachie's wonderful 13-year-old. Much more bourbon, there's some sherry in this, but it's much more bourbon forward, much more balanced, much lighter, but it's got that lovely kind of almost quite robust. Some people find it a wee bit meaty, or certainly something a bit heavier style in the whiskey. Fantastic product. Could have easily put it over there, but it is, you can buy it for £43, £44, so it gets close. But the typical RRP for this is a wee bit higher than that still. This is 13 years old. This is a gem. This is precious. And there's an argument that I should have put it over there and said, toss the budget, it doesn't matter. This helps me get a wee bit closer to the budget, this release from Glenallachie. I'm enjoying it. I wonder how you're feeling about it too. Alistair Gray is a barfly for 35 months in Glenallachie 8. You have chosen wisely. He's happy. Fantastic. No Rolex is saying Tamdu 12. Needs better presentation, no Rolex. It's 43%, but it is a true Speyside classic sherry style. It's also, the Tamdu 12 is actually quite reasonably priced, but Tamdu, I'm worried. I'm just kind of watching where they're going on their pricing. They are doing very much this kind of luxury. They're really trying to build the image of their brand. And I wonder if, I don't know if that's always going to sit well with us. But still, Tamdu 12, even at 43%, it's a terrific wee sipper too. Surely you can squeeze in Craigellachie miniature in there. Well, let's attempt that. I'm going to summarise at the end and talk about what I've chosen and how it would be easy to switch it out and what the consequences would be. And Helen is saying, a fine, dirty wee dram, that Craigellachie 13-year-old. I know that you enjoy it as well, Helen. James Hope is saying, having attended the Craigellachie 51 tour, I'd argue the 13 is my favourite of all their core range, including the 51. Incredible, James. And I think that 51 tour was the one where they opened the 51 and gave it out for free to people who attended. Jimmy is saying I can buy that Craigellachie for 65 bucks Canadian. I can't believe it's not less for you. I think I wrote down the price of the Craigellachie 13 in my wee list here as I was chewing through it. I've got so many whiskies in front of me here. Can I find it? No, it's here. I've written it down. I know I have, but I think from memory, the cheapest I found it was 43 and change, £44, 43.95, something of that order. So it is out there at a reasonable price. This Glenallachie was a 3 or 4, when every penny's a prisoner right in this challenge. I've now got £74, haven't I, to cover my last two whiskies. But I managed to find this Glenallachie 8-year-old for £40.99. Fantastic. But you see the problem. I'm now 4 whiskies in. I've said to myself, I've got to hit less than £200. £199 is my target here. £38.20 per bottle. And I'm over on the Campbeltown. I'm over on the Islay. I'm over on the Lowlands. And I'm over on the Speyside. I've got £33.27 left to take myself into the Highlands to find a product that we can enjoy together. Let's see how I got on with that. Let's have a wee sip of the Speysider. Plenty sherry in here. There's PX in here. There's no doubt of that on the nose. Say it's the dominant cask here is the PX. But this is also using virgin oak and wine, and it's also using Oloroso. So what? Too much cask fiddling going on, too much jiggery pokery. Forget it. Just sit in front of this. Sit in front of this whiskey and sip it as a whiskey. It's beautiful. It's beautiful whiskey. And it's alive. There's detail in this. There's things that you can pick out. It's whiskey, so it goes a wee bit tannic on the end as well. There's a bit of bitterness in there too, maybe from the barriques. Some European oak in here as well. Lovely sweetness, a wee bit of sweetness just threaded through like a toffee, a sweet butterscotch toffee. Let's look for some fruit. Wee bit of cinnamon. It's quite jammy. If I'm looking for fruit, I'm in cooked. I'm in the realm of cooked fruits. This is for only 8 years old. It's not overly jagged. It's not ridiculous. This is just good, honest whiskey, natural whiskey. Yes, I could have picked a Craigellachie. It would only cost me £2 or £3 more, and it would have had a deserved place over there. But when every penny's a prisoner, and you've got something as fantastic as this, it makes the cut. Jimmy Legg has bought me a dram. You star. Here's another tenner. Get the Craigellachie. I love you, Jimmy. I've obviously got the Craigellachie, and as anybody has been tuning in for long enough, they'll know the Craigellachie has a place in my heart too. It's a perma-shelf whiskey, and from a company like Dewar's, you know, they don't treat all their ranges the same way. I would rather that they gave up a couple of Craigellachies as a cheap whiskey in order to bring up Aberfeldy and what's the other one that's Macduff, the Devon, Glendevon, right? If they brought those up and gave us some nice natural examples from those distilleries so we could connect with those distilleries too, it's okay to mix up your range. Tomatin do a great job. They've got lots of lovely natural whiskies and a Tomatin Legacy at 43%. Glencadam have got their Origin, their starter whiskey. Speyburn have got their 10 and their Brad Norak that's lower ABV. There's distilleries that do great stuff with natural presentation and put mass market whiskies out there too. It's not difficult. Why do you write off your whole entire distillery range to be mass market whiskies? Why do you dilute, strip 21-year-old malts? It's precious liquid. How do we know it's precious? Because look at how much you're charging us for it. Why are you stripping it? Why are you stripping it? Why are you adding colour to it? Everyone here knows it's going to be the Dalmore King Alexander. Yeah, for £29.99. You can imagine. Well, let's swing in. How are we doing for time one? We're 40. There's a quiz at the end. There is a theme to the quiz at the end, and I hope it's a wee bit mellower than last week's quiz. Certainly mellower than the one I did for patrons on Sunday night in the lock-in. But hopefully it's going to be fun. You will recognise a theme to the quiz at the end. Let's go into a final region. Now, of course, I need to talk about this. We're in the Highlands. And if we look at where we are in terms of money, we've got only £33 left in our budget, 27 pence as well. But we're lucky because the Highlands is a huge region. The complexity, the variation that's in the Highlands, the choice that we have from the Highlands is wonderful to behold. Some of our favourite distilleries exist in that region. But with only £33 left, I can't put an Ardnamurchan in the mix, can I? I don't have the money left for it. Ardnamurchan is great value for fantastic whiskey, £45 and less. In fact, I've noticed some places with it online at 42, 43, £44. Fantastic value, wonderful whiskey. Certainly permashelf for me, but it's not in the offing for tonight purely because of the difficult decisions I've had to make on price. So what have I been able to do for the Highlands region? Where have I gone? Well, there's an obvious one, and I know that it's already been mentioned tonight, and it was certainly mentioned inside Patreon. I didn't mention any of my Patreon comments, but let's grab a couple now, see what Highlanders. Reb Mordecai threw in a whole bunch, but his summary at the end was quite interesting. He offered a Lafroig quarter cask, 48% good. Kilholman Machier Bay, picked it up, Reb, superb. Old Ballantrae non-age statement. Glencadam 10, fantastic recommendation, and a Highlander. Benromac Peat Smoke, another good recommendation, and the Peat Smoke is a 46%er, I believe. Deanston 12, all natural, great stuff. Glenallachie, 8-year-old, fantastic. We're on the same page on quite a few of those, Reb. Reb gave us a great digest, lots and lots of stuff. He did give me a bit of a hard time about rejecting the premise based on a beginner, not having £200 to go out and buy a collection. But I hope you understand that that whole concept is about building a theme for a vPub as opposed to giving somebody a list to go out and spend £200 on. I'm giving somebody a selection of 5 whiskies to pick and choose where they want to go, right? So it's about the vPub and the theme and talking about the concepts of how are we going to bring people into whiskey when the prices are doing what they're doing. That's the focus tonight, Reb. Matt Bishop talks about Compass Box Great King Street, the Glasgow blend, a peated blend, £35. Kalila 12 at 47, Balblier 12, good shout. Another Highlander, all natural, £37, well within the realm. Highland Park, 40% ABV, 43 depending on where you are, £30. It's very inexpensive, yes. Glenkinchie 12, 42, 43% as well. We had Bunnahabhain Sturridge mentioned by Papa Z. Good call, Rob. You've mentioned it's been in here tonight. You also recommended the Loch Lomond 12. He recommended an American whiskey, Balcones Brimstone or Lineage. Brimstone is really quite challenging, but he's able to buy them at $50. Here we're paying a wee bit more than that. Dougie Lang's Timorous Beastie Blended Malt has already been mentioned. It's a Highlander, $49. Orchard House from Compass Box and Scarabus, Isla Single Malt Scarabus. Scarabus is one of the most inexpensive 46% single malt whiskies. I think it's about £43 £44 you can pick that up for. So it's Kalila, as far as I'm concerned, it's Kalila. It's my take on it. I don't know it to be Kalila. Nobody's told me that that's the case. I'm just suggesting to you based on my experience over enjoying of Scarabus over the years. I think it's Kalila, and it's a pretty fantastic sipping whiskey and great, great value. Should have been mentioned arguably with the Islay lineup tonight. So the patrons have just been putting fantastic suggestions in there. Very interesting to see that there has been some similarity, some synergy with what I'm suggesting. Jeff is saying everyone here knows it's going to be Dalmore. Sorry, I picked that one up. I'm still picking up the King Alexander one. And Savar in Iceland is saying tell them to buy Arran. Arran 10 should be, especially when you can buy Arran 10 for sub £40. You definitely can. But it's been, and it's a crowd pleaser, and it's great for a beginner coming in. Fully natural as well, all the stats on the label. It's a no-brainer for me to put Arran in. This is why I'm talking Balblair 12 and all of the other whiskies I was mentioning there. I'm spoiled for choice in the Highlands. It's fantastic to see. There are even things like Old Pulteney Huddart in there, non-age statement, but decent presentation. Just, we're spoiled for choice in the Highlands. Here's another one, Deanston's Virgin Oak. I've spoke about this before. They've now got a Cask Strength version of this out as well, 46.3% ABV, and a cracking, wee, inexpensive whiskey that rarely goes over £36, £37. Great value. My perennial perma-shelf, absolute love this thing to death. I really need to get another bottle in. I gave myself a fright when I grabbed this and realised that for the first time, there isn't a replacement behind this when I took it off the shelf. That's getting remedied quickly because this is one of the best malt whiskies on the planet. When you talk about value proposition, you know, you could argue that for a lot of people, this is going to be quite subtle. It's not going to be too out there. But the more time you spend with this, the more it reveals and the better it's getting. Fully natural, unchill filtered, no added colour. It tells us on the label, 10-year age statement, 46% ABV. Everything we want for 40 quid. Glencadam, please don't change. Please don't ever change this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful whiskey. And yet, I've got 33 quid left. I can't afford my £40 for the Glencadam 10. But thanks to Distell, we've got something here that's a wee bit cheaper than £40. This is from you. I had the samples from you. I drank your samples. More than one of you sent in samples of this wee bottle of whiskey. I'll thank you very, very much. You've been talking about it for a while. It's not new. It came out in as far back as 2021, I think, maybe even before. But it's certainly been around a while. And I just kind of said I'll get round to that eventually. But you've forced it onto my radar, and I've started to talk about it. And interestingly, not by myself, but it's been reviewed on Dramface this very day. I'm talking about Lechick. This is their Sinclair series. There's only one bottle right now, so there isn't a series as of yet, but it suggests future releases. And this is their Rioja cask matured. Now, it doesn't mention Rioja anywhere, I don't think. It doesn't, it just says it in the small text on the side. So they're just calling this the Sinclair series. 46.3%. It does say non-chill filtered on the label. What I will say about this is that I'm pretty certain, despite it being from, it's got that lovely magenta hue to it, right? So we know that that's in line with it being from a wine cask, let's say. But what I would say about this is that to me, they've probably maybe been tempted to add a wee bit of colour. And I apologise if that's not the case and it is natural colour. But if it's natural colour, why is it not on the label? We're going to give you a buy, though, Distell, because this is a fantastic product. It's not everybody's cup of tea all of the time. This is red wine, firstly. It's also youthful spirit. But they've managed to put this together so well, that active wine cask, that beautifully pungent PT Tobermory spirit that is Lechick, and at a price point that everything else is in check. If they put a wee dot of colour in this, we'll tell them they need to try harder, there's room for improvement, but we'll give them a pass on it. Because this is fantastic whiskey. Fantastic whiskey. If you want somebody, you know, they don't need to go to Islay for their peat. So you can tell them this is a Western Highlands. The malt for this does come from Islay. This is Port Ellen malt. But it's Western Highland. It's not exactly like an Islay whiskey, but it's pretty close. It's an example of Western Highlands. So back in the remote days of being out on island somewhere, as long as they had a peat bog, they had a fuel source. Out of all the Highland whiskies I could have picked to go in the lineup, I've found this. I think it's distinctive. I think you can talk about wine cask maturation. I think it gives you the ability to do a lot of things. And because you're recommending something that's as well priced as this, there's less pressure on the purchaser and on you as the experienced, wizened hand who's leading the purchaser and recommending them a wee bit. Takes a bit of pressure off when it's well priced. Aromatic, warm, spiced, berries, damson, red currant, even a wee lick of like a gooseberry something. I'm going to tell you the price I paid for this. This is not good for cheap whiskey. This is good whiskey that just happens to be very well priced. That's what we're talking about here. There's nothing cheap about this. This is natural whiskey, 46.3% and unchill filtered. Please tell us about the colour status of it, Distill. But like I say, we're giving you a buy. This is amazing. This is a fantastic, well put together product. And we are so grateful to have it. Gary Carew is screaming at me, that's an island, not a Highland. That is a Highland. Gary, it's a Highland. And we're going by SWA regions tonight. I've only got 5 whiskies to pick, of course. We could go 6, and we could do both, buddy. We could give it an island and a Highland, but we're in the realm of 6 whiskies there, so I need the budget to be up at £240, £250. But I think that that's okay. That's what I'm doing tonight. I'm giving people these other alternatives so that they can extend it into the islands and split up the islands from the Highlands if they want. Under SWA regs, Tobermory, I'm afraid, is a Highland distillery. Brian Sutherland is saying, great shout. And Rob Smith is saying, I should have known. Did nobody predict this? Tom Elmer is saying, found it on the web. Can't be wrong. And he's also saying, first release is the new Sinclair series. This non-age stated Rioja finish is ruby red in colour like all our single malts. This is non-chill filtered in natural colour. Alleluia, Tom. Now, if you're finding it on the web, that's one thing. But you're absolutely right. It needs to be on the bottle. How have they just not stepped up and done that on all of their products like they have on the Boona Haven that we spoke about tonight? Even the Sturature tells us on the Sturature here that it's natural colour right on the label. You should do that with all your whiskies. Makes it even more exciting, right? Blackfin is saying the Tobermory website says like all our single malts, non-chill filtered natural colour. Fantastic. Thanks very much. Blackfen, and thanks to Tom Elmer as well. Pedro is here. Brendan McCarran did an amazing presentation for an SMW podcast, Aquavite. It's really worth listening to. Brendan McCarran, I've reached out to Brendan to talk to him about getting together on a vPub. We've not spoken about it yet. Maybe get our heads together and try and do something for the future. The star is rising there for Distill Malts right now. It's a good place. You can usually pick up the Annock 10-year-old at the mini market in Dufton for $29.89. 12-year-old, I think you mean, Graham. 40% whiskey, but yeah, still one I have on the shelf despite it being, I've got a wee soft spot for Annock, haven't I? Terrific stuff. So where does that leave us, okay? We've got our £33 left. How much have I spent on my Lead Chick Rioja? Well, I found this online for £33.04. Thanks to this wee bottle of whiskey, I've been able to slide in by 23 pence under budget. So let's lift this wee bottle of whiskey, pop it over next to its compatriots, and let's look at what we've been able to achieve. I think that, yes, Reb, nobody's going to go out with £200 and buy a collection of whiskey. But if this was your collection of whiskey, for any of us, if you walked into a beginner's house and this is what they were sipping, you would nod sagely. If this was your wee shelf and this is what you were sipping, you would be content. These are fantastic whiskies. They represent all 5 of the SWA regions. I didn't buy any of these on special offer, discounted, loyalty card schemes, on sale, flash sales, nothing like that. I paid the lowest price that I could find them online. And where I didn't buy it, where I already had it in the collection, I used the current price as of this week. I've obviously worked very hard to push the natural side. I've missed on the Glen Scotia because there's a dot of colour in that, but we know that's natural, 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 natural. Now we know that all the rest is natural. So the only one is that double cask. I think that's a really, really good little collection, and I've been able to bring so much more alternatives to you. So if you decided that you wanted to bump the price up a little bit, you could switch out for any other of the whiskies that I've spoken about tonight and spend a few pounds more and know that you're still getting a good whiskey that's priced with value at the forefront. And it's quality and flavour first. Lowland, that is a good selection for recommended retail price. Fantastic. Steve Atkins is in saying, I want a lightly peated. It's true. It went through my mind. You know, you could argue that, you know, with the Kilchoman in there, and also the lead chick, you would want something that's just kind of lightly peated. But encourage someone, when you're talking about blended malts, such as the Dougie Lane Remarkable Regional Malts, encourage somebody to get a wee glass, a wee sample bottle, something like this. 20% peated at the most. Fill the rest up with something else that they like. Leave it, let it sit for a while. You've got a lightly peated whiskey. You've got a blended malt. If you use two whiskies from the same distillery, even if it's peated and unpeated, you've still got a single malt, but you've got wee home creation. What's wrong with doing that at home? Especially if it's difficult to get a good quality lightly peated that you like. Play with your whiskey at home. When we're paying these prices for it, there's no anxiety to sacrificing a dram or two to switch it up. Ian Bruce is saying, can we have classes sent by SWA for adulterated liquid and unadulterated? I think we should. I really think we should. The rest of the world is getting on board. Not everywhere, not all of them, but so many new countries are just going all natural. Tommy Elmer is saying, if I walked into a beginner's house and saw these, I'd be waiting for them to pull the other leg. They aren't a beginner. They're an informed beginner, Tom. And maybe they've been spending some time hanging out with you or me, maybe any of the Barfly's beautiful whiskey folk in the vPub. Maybe that's what's been happening. So there we go. I enjoyed doing this because it does force me to reach out there. It does force me to look. It forces me to engage with the whiskies that you're buying, and it forces me to consider I'm buying all of these whiskies with my own money. I think about it and I'm very careful with it, and that puts me in a unique position, I think. Not a unique position, actually, but it puts me in the positive position that if I talk about these whiskies and recommend them, you know I'm talking about it after I've parted with my own money. Thanks to you. Thanks to the patrons. Amazing. And thanks to, honestly, beautiful Barflies, all of you, for making this whole thing exist and giving me an independent voice. Thank you all. We do have a quiz at the end. If you want to leave comments after the live stream is finished tonight underneath the video and share with all of the community what your picks would have been. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? What your lists would have been? Even if you're agreeing with me, put it down there, because that's a gold mine for a beginner, for somebody coming in, and they can look in the comments as well, and they're not taking it from a YouTuber, somebody that they're suspicious of and they don't really know. They're taking it from people in the comments. That is a gold mine, and it's part of the dynamic of a bi-directional community that we have. So I encourage you to leave your lists and your comments underneath, and I will do my very, very best to keep up with the comments and reply to every single one of them as well. Let's get my quiz set up. I need to just bring it in. I should have done that in advance. I'm pretty good at forgetting that these days, actually, but it doesn't take too long to bring in and process. I think that, as has already been mentioned, my patrons were brutalised on Sunday night in the private lock-in. But one of the questions I asked was just such a good question to ask that, yes, it was the ultimate example of an asshat, and I did get a hard time for it. But people took it very, very well. They enjoyed it. The concept of an asshat is, okay, you know the answer to the question that's being asked, but the options that come up mean that you have to know the answer to the options as well in order to match them. It's deliberately awkward. It's deliberately obtuse questions, but it's fun, and they're there in order to help you hopefully think a wee bit more about the question and the things behind the question. Anyway, good luck everybody as we roll. Rob Smith is saying Aquaviti, that was rough. As we roll into quiz at the end, thank you all for your time hanging out with me. If you're not staying for the quiz, fantastic. Thank you for joining us to this point. But if you do stay for the quiz, hopefully you'll have some fun. It's all multiple choice. You only share the score if you want to, and you're only playing against yourself. If you're struggling, use the crowd. It's a very knowledgeable crowd. Question 1 on the 26th of January. The largest malt distillery in the Lowlands is owned by which of the big four? Which of the big four owns the biggest malt distillery in the Lowlands? Is A, William Grant, B, Diageo, or C, Edrington? Who owns the biggest malt distillery in the Lowlands? Willie Grant, Diageo, or Edrington? There is a theme to the quiz at the end tonight, but I wouldn't jump in too early. If you're only going to take one guess at it, wait until you feel like you've picked up a pattern. Rob Smith is saying definitely fun though. Fantastic. I thought you'd written definitely not fun though. Thank you, Rob. He said definitely fun. I appreciate it. Still not renewed my Patreon, said Graham Strams, who's threatened to remove his Patreon support because of that ASAT question in the lock-in last week. Falscraft is saying real ASAT questions need a very good gut feeling. I think that there's a lot of truth in that, Falscraft. Absolutely. Good to see you in, Klaus. Always good to see you. Everybody seems to think the consensus is, with very few discrepancy, that the quiz tends to start off quite easy, that Willie Grant owns the biggest malt distillery in the Lowlands, and that's absolutely true. Of course, we're talking about the often forgotten Ailsa Bay. I think they're up to about 16 malt stills now, or 16 stills. Massive concern down there, and we just don't see a lot of releases from it. Obviously, it's all gone into blends. Question 2. Which Lowland distillery released their inaugural release in 2021? Who released their inaugural in 2021? Which Lowland distillery? Was it A, the Clydeside, B, Strathearn, or C, Dalmunnock? Sometimes there are wee icons or wee guides to the left-hand side to suggest that this might be an asshat or a banana skin. Banana skins are something that could maybe easily trip you up if you spend a wee bit of time thinking about it. Savar is saying educated guess. If it's an educated guess, you should be able to get it, my friend. I'm looking to see what Savar has gone for, but I've not picked up his answer. Which Lowland distillery released their inaugural release in 2021? It was, of course, Clydeside. Strathearn is Southern Highlands. Dalmunnock is a Speyside distillery. It's the only... So even if you didn't know and you don't really keep up to date with what releases are coming, or you live in a territory where you don't really care about that because you can't get your hands on it, maybe you know that Strathearn is actually a Highlander and Dalmunnock is a Speysider, which means that process of elimination, Clydeside makes it easy. Question 3. Gordon MacPhail started production at the cairn in 2022. That's in production now, just last year the cairn started. It's their second distillery though, but I'm asking, when did they buy Benromach? Gordon MacPhail, of course, owned our beloved Benromach, but when did they buy that distillery? Was it A, 1993, B, 2003, C, 2013? Quite a wide range there, 10 years in between each of those. 20-year span. 1993, 2003, or 2013. Pedro is saying I'll be in Scotland again in February. I'll try to visit Deanston again. He's talking to Alan McGregor. Pedro, I hope we get a chance to speak before your trip over here. I know you've got other plans and things going on as well. I hope we maybe get a chance to speak next week. Everybody seems to think that it has to be A, says Warner. And Falscraft is saying A for the third time. He thinks that maybe A is the theme tonight. I don't know. Absolutely. Gordon MacPhail have been in charge of Benromach. For this year will be their 30 years. 30 years. Hardly a new relationship now, but fortunately we can't criticise because we're starting to see fantastic things. In fact, we've been seeing fantastic things for a wee while now, but it's really come onto stream recently. I just wish that their core range was I know it's the geek rant, isn't it? But still, I pine for it. Question 4. Which distillery released a significant upgrade to their branding in 2022, which was universally loved? Usually, if there's a rebranding or a modification to the brand or something changes, it's not something that sits well. Change is not often good. But this distillery did something in 2022 that people went nuts for. What was it? Who were they? Sorry. A. Benromac. B. Glasgow. C. Glenturret. Who did a significant revision in 2022 that, for a change, we all loved? It didn't seem to be a subjective change. There's a banana skin here, folks. You might remember me raving about the new range from Glenturret. The maiden release specifically was the 12-year-old maiden release was a fantastic sherried product, just wonderful stuff from the Southern Highlander. But of course, that was the 2020 maiden release. I'm asking here about 2022. Benromac did change in recent years, but that's been there quite a few years on their kind of Soviet red and white scheme. It was Glasgow Distillery who switched from 50 cl bottles to 70 cl bottles and kept the price the same, responding to demands from the voice of the consumer, in my opinion. So it's a banana skin there. It is a complete change to the presentation of the bottle, going from a 50 cl to a 70 cl. Even although the aesthetic changed the same, they changed something. So there you go. 3 out of 4. Stupid mistake to jump in, says Ben. Boo, boo, says Jimmy Legg. I did have the wee banana skin in there to kind of make you pause and think a wee bit harder about it, Jimmy. Apologies. Question 5 is always a picture question. Here's a picture of really quite a pretty scene. I would like to sit here and drink some drams. But where am I? This is one of Graham Fraser's pictures, so he gets a buy on this one. He's got an automatic shoe in for a point here. Are we looking at A, Lindores Abbey in the Lowlands, B, Brora in the Highlands, or C, the Glenlivet in Speyside? Where is this attractive, very posh picture taken? A, Lindores Abbey, B, Brora, C, the Glenlivet. Apologies if you are listening podcast style. I would like to suggest if you can't see this picture and you're listening podcast style and it's frustrating for you, just assume that you know it. Give yourself a point. It's okay. You're only playing against yourself. Wonderful place and dog friendly too, says Whiskey with Molly. Terrific to get your thumbs up there, Ben. Wonderful. And you're all absolutely right. You're all knowledgeable folk. Saw this recently on YouTube, says Anthony Lambert. Everybody spotted that this is, in fact, Lindores Abbey, and a very nice, welcoming place it looks too. I've yet to visit myself. I should remedy that soon, especially if it's the place that produces a product called Aquavite, right? Question 6. Which distillery owner helped fund their distillery by selling off beef cattle? It's going to get a bit trickier on the back, the return home, the back 9, as they would say in golf. But in the second half, it does tend to get a wee bit stickier and trickier. Which distillery owner helped fund their distillery by selling off beef cattle? Are there not bottles on the shelf? Oh, some people might have spotted some Lindores bottles to help them along. Sid, hey, maybe you've got a bigger screen and you can spot it. Jimmy Legacy, the theme is new distilleries since 1990. Well done, Jimmy. Jimmy, I don't know if it's if you're the first to spot it, but absolutely. The theme is new distilleries, actually since 2005. Which distillery owner helped fund their distillery by selling off beef cattle? Was it A, Annabel Thomas of Nicknean, B, the Mackenzies of Lindores Abbey, or C, Neil I think you would pronounce Neil's name as Neil McGeough of Lochlee. Annabel Thomas of Nicknean, the Mackenzies of Lindores Abbey, or Neil McGeough of Lochlee. Well done, Jimmy Legg. You take your plaudits for the theme tonight. One Glassman Warner is saying C because, and No Rolex is saying yes, new distilleries. One answer was 1993 for Ben Romack, though, Aquavite. Aye, that is true. That is absolutely true. But the lead up to the question was the Cairn distillery. So yeah, I did stretch it a wee bit, Jimmy. I wanted to bring in a question about the Cairn, but get distracted by Ben Romack. So aye, good spot, my eagle-eyed Canadian friend. The whiskyographer is saying, I've been down to Lockleigh and met some of the still resident castle. It's a gorgeous wee distillery. Again, something I need to rectify is to get down to see that place as well. The whiskyographer, good to have you in. Lol, okay, says Jimmy. You're absolutely right. C, Neil McGill at Lockleigh. Family was originally into retail, and he was a beef farmer, and now he's a distiller. Fantastic. Question 7. Which Scotch distillery is experimenting with yeast, barley, and malt types, producing around 40 different styles of new make? Looking for a distillery that's really experimental here. A, Holyrood, B, Ardnamurchan, or C, Bruichladdich? So clearly knowing the theme might start to play into this here and might help you a little bit. Which distillery is doing crazy things? Must be difficult. Maybe you wanted Waterford to appear here. But which Scotch distilleries experimenting with yeast, barley, and malt types, producing around 40 different styles of new make? A, Holyrood, B, Ardnamurchan, or C, Bruichladdich? Absolutely. You've all got this right. Quite comfortable. They're doing lots of collaborative things with Heriot-Watt University, Berry Brothers and Rudd. They're playing with barley varieties, heritage barleys, different yeast varieties, different malt types. Dizzying, but I'm talking about Holyrood over in Edinburgh. I can't wait to see what they do with all of that work. And they were part of the collaboration with the Dave Broom and Arthur Motley Liquid Antiquarian video that dropped earlier tonight. It's linked in the description below. If you want to go and see that after the vPub, I recommend it as a watch. It's good fun as well. But that's to Dave and Arthur just really getting their geek on, going back into history, finding this old recipe, this old fermentation recipe that wouldn't be allowed under current regulations, and making it with the help of Holyrood Distillery. Terrific stuff. It's called The Mystery of Bub. Question 8. Which distillery famously ran its first spirit only 18 weeks after the start of construction? What an achievement. Just over 4 months it took to build. Quite incredible turnaround. Which distillery are we talking about? A, the Clydeside in the Lowlands, B, Wolfburn in the Northern Highlands, or C, Dingle in Southwest Ireland? Which distillery famously ran its first spirit only 18 weeks after it started construction? Tim Allett is saying going to be lots of 10 out of 10s tonight. He's reading how many 7 out of 7s there are. Jimmy Paul on a 7 out of 7. Jimmy Paul, good to have you in and playing along. 7 out of 7 is a great score. Anthony Lambert is on the same. Sid Martin, Whiskey in the West Coast. Molasses Mike, Pedro Meneses. I know you're in Brazil, sorry, buddy. Helen's Wood, Frank Peathead, Danny Hebbington is on a 6. Don McCausland on 7. Andrew Butler 2. BMO on 7. There are lots of 7s along with Dogs of No Uncles. That's Colin and Kyle Taylor. Fantastic. Lots of strong scores tonight. This is, in fact, Wolfburn in the Northern Highlands. So I think that just took out a few of you. It's an industrial setting. This is a steel-clad construction, more of an industrial building than a traditional brick-built distillery. Very quick to build. There were still building going on around it as they started the spirit production, but it was one of the fastest beginning to spirit running ever. In fact, I think it is the fastest. It was just over 4 months from August to, I think it just maybe slipped into January. So late August, September, October, November, December. Yeah, just slipped into January before they ran the first spirit. It's somewhere in the order of 18 weeks. Quite incredible turnaround. Looks like that question. It does get a wee bit trickier as it goes on. Took out a few of the hopefuls for a 10 out of 10 tonight. Let's go into the second from the end. Penultimate question, wee bit of a banana skin, but I'm going to read what's printed, or an abbreviated version, let's say, of what's printed on a very small label. Concerto and Laureate barley, in-grain phenols of 77 ppm, fermented with Pinnacle Mg plus and Saf Spirit M minus 1 yeasts. Sorry for the spelling mistake, it's yeasts. First fill and refill, bottled at 46% ABV, non-chill filtered, natural colour, and a residual phenol in the bottle of 17 ppm. Now, if you want transparency, that's transparency, but that exists on the label of an official bottling out there in whiskey, in Scotch whisky right now. Where is that label? Is it on A, the back of an Ardnamurchan bottle, B, the back of an Ailsa Bay bottle, or C, the back of a Torrevake bottle? A, Ardnamurchan, B, Ailsa Bay, C, Torrevake. Transparency, transparency, transparency. It's not difficult. Concerto and Laureate, they're telling us what the barley is. They're telling what the phenols of the malt were where they started the process, 77 ppm. They're telling us the yeast types. They're telling us the cask types. They're telling us that why they bottle at 46% ABV to make it non-chill filtered and natural colour. And then they're telling us, after the distillation process, how many of those original 77 ppm phenols make it through to the bottle, and it is, of course, 17. I can tell you that that is on the back of, as most of you have answered, knowledgeable folk, of a bottle of Torrevake on a label that measures less than 2 inches by 2 inches. It's not difficult. Well done, Torrevake. You could have been up for a shout. If the Highlands wasn't so crowded already, Torrevake could have been in with a shout tonight. Heavily peated style, decent whiskey that's only going to get better as time goes on. How are we doing? How are we doing before we go into the asshat at the end? Whiskey in the West Coast has slipped up 8 out of 9, but Dogs Have No Uncles is still on course with a 9 along with Sid Martin. Fantastic. Andrew Butler as well. Terrific stuff. Steve Atkiss, Jimmy Jazz on 8 out of 9 along with Whiskey in the West Coast, as I mentioned. Jerry Miller, 9 out of 9. Oh no, this Hassat is where my 10 goes to die. Hang on, Jerry. Be optimistic. Be confident. 9 out of 10. 9 out of 9. Sorry, Mike as well, tied with the all-time high score. Hold on there, Mike. It might be your night. And Pedro is saying 9 out of 9. Will it be today? Lots of people could be celebrating, or lots of people could be very upset with Aquaviti. Alistair McPhail also using some clenched fists and crossed fingers. He's on a 9 out of 9 as well. Somebody is getting a 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10, says Don McCausland. I hope so too. You can see that there's an emoji. If you're a barfly, you get a chance to access all of those cool whiskey context emoji. And there is a 10 out of 10 one. Question 10, the asshat at the end. Of the 39 new operational distilleries in Scotland listed in the 2023 Malt Whisky Yearbook, how many of those are located in the Lowlands? So the section at the back of the book that lists the new operational distilleries is since 2005. So it doesn't include Glengyle, for example, and it doesn't include Kilchoman. How many of those 39 are from the Lowlands? Is it A, about the same as the years of operation for Glengyle Distillery in Campbeltown? B, about the same as the years of operation for Ardnamurchan in the Western Highlands? Or B, about the same as the years of operation for Lochleigh in the Lowlands? How many of the 39 new operational distilleries in the back of the Malt Whisky Yearbook? Some of you are thumbing your yearbooks right now. Some of you are just going on your gut. Some of you are playing the game. How many of them are in the Lowlands? How many years has Glengyle been in operation? That'll tell you. Ardnamurchan, how many years has that been going? And Lochleigh, how many years? Falsgraf is saying C. No, B. Okay, I'll tell you quickly that Glengyle was 2005, Ardnamurchan was 2014. I think Spirit started to run in 2015. Years of operation for Lochleigh, well, that was much more recent. That was 2018, 2019, wasn't it? But actually, almost half of the new distilleries listed in the Malt Whisky Yearbook in Scotland are located in the Lowlands. Out of 39, 18 of them are Lowland distilleries. Incredible, right? The Renaissance is so much in the Lowlands. Terrific to see as well. Wonderful years ahead for you if you're into Scotch malt whisky. Who managed and survived to the 10 out of 10 at the end? Wasn't Glengyle 2004? Aye, you could be right, Jimmy Legg. You could be absolutely right. So they have completed, if it's 2004, yes, you're right. They have, it is 2004. So they have completed 18 years for 18 distilleries. And this will be the 19th year. Quite incredible. Excess 2 Scotches. Oh, damn, he's saying Jimmy Jazz managed a 9. 10 out of 10 for Colin. Congratulations. We have at least one 10 out of 10 tonight. Good. Well done to you, Colin. Sid Martin celebrating his 10. Terrific stuff. I can spot that with the emoji so easily. Woot. Mike Molasses has done it. My very first 10 out of 10. Well done, Mike. Fantastic stuff. Congratulations. Bruce Berner has just come in and said 1 out of 1, but it's 100% scoring. He's saying a late starter. I hope you pick it up on the replay, Bruce. It's nice to have you in at the dying embers of the vPub tonight. Super happy, says Martin Fielder, with his 9 out of 10. Terrific stuff, Martin. MJ Roden on 9 out of 10 as well. Aris Mouse is in it, 8 out of 10. Great score, Jimmy Paul. Oh, so close, Jimmy. Managed a 9 out of 10. 9 out of 10 for MJ Rodden. 10. Quick work with my Malt Whisky Yearbook. Ah, you big cheat. Terrific stuff. Well done to you, the hard-working student of Alistair McPhail. Terrific stuff. Great quiz, Roy, says Ian Bruce. Glad you're appreciating it, Ian. I hope you enjoy. Way to go, Mike. Mike is the guy tonight. Alistair McPhail, I believe you got your first ever 10 out of 10 when you were live on the vPub with me, Alistair, which is brilliant to see. Danny Heaventon is saying, well, I've done all you tenors. And Jerry Miller. Oh, it looks like Jerry Miller managed his 10 out of 10 as well. Fantastic. That's what I like to see, folk celebrating the fact that they can snag a 10 out of 10, that despite the ass-hattery banana skins and trickiness of the quiz, that it's just good fun and it's brilliant because there's no point in just dishing out 10 out of 10s every week. It's got to be something it's really something that you can celebrate. Terrific stuff. Thank you, everybody. Rob, Too Slow, you star. Always great to see you in, and it's always great to see how thankful you are. Falscraft is saying thanks for another great vPub. Thanks for the evening, Roy. You're very welcome, Falscraft, my friend Klaus in Germany. Don McCausland is saying, I like having themes on the quizzes. Gives me a little extra hint. Fantastic, Don. Makes it harder, a wee bit harder to put together, but I'm glad you're enjoying it. Whiskey with Molly saying, give me a shout when you want to visit Lindores, and we'll use my 1484 membership access. I don't think you'll get in with that. I think you need the 1494. I'm just being a wee facetious nightmare. Ben, that's wonderfully generous of you. You're a very generous man. I've got a bottle of whiskey here for you. I wonder when you're going to pick it up or when I can deliver it to you. I copied off the guy sitting next to me, admits Jerry. That's fine. It's how the quiz at the end goes. Graham Fraser is saying, thanks for another vPub, Roy. Thank you, Graham, for being here. Alistair is saying, yes, it's my first 10 since I got 11 out of 11 live with you. Brilliant stuff. And Everwind is saying, fair winds Maltwick. Chris, Everwind is in. Fantastic. I just only spotted you there. Jimmy Legg has bought me a dram. Roy, you were made to talk whiskey. How could anyone else do the vPub better? I can't imagine it. Cheers and see you soon, you handsome devil. Jimmy Legg, oh God, you're a superstar. See, for all the making fun and the tongue-in-cheek stuff, then you go and say something really sweet like that. You're a superstar. Jimmy, thanks for your dram, my friend. Danny Hebbington is saying, cheers, Roy. You're a top lad. Danny Hebbington, you're a top lad too. Thank you very much for being here, my friend. Jeff is saying, really enjoyed tonight, and Aquavite sure will regret in 5 hours when the little one wakes up. I'll regret it too. I think I might end up on the school run tomorrow, so maybe the whiskies that I poured earlier might have to be sacrificed tonight. I don't know. I'm going to stay up and do the chapter markers so that people can skip through this quickly tonight. I think it's important to do that one tonight just because of the topic. A very sober vPub, says Ben Whiskey with Molly. It just isn't the same. But fair play to you, Ben. If you can sit and enjoy the vPub being sober, then that's something I welcome. Well done to you. And also for doing so well on a quiz. Chris Pollack is here saying, thanks for the slightly ranty vPub. See you next time. Oh, the vPub's going to it's inevitable that there's a kind of more and more of a rant. I hope you don't mind it, Chris. I hope that it's sat okay with you. Craig G is saying, thanks, Aquavite and all the barflies. Thanks to you, Craig. Anthony Lambert, good night, good nacht, and nos da, and everybody from the Welshman in Germany. Good to have you in. Always, Anthony. You're a superstar. Good to have you here. And Alistair McPhail. Thanks, Aquavita Roy, for another great vPub. Remember the content I've shared with you. That Ralphie share, I've put the link in the description box below. Ralphie shared it with his patrons. Fantastic. Good call. I think it's just so valuable for you, because people are going to come to you and say, oh, what about cask investment? And how do you answer? Send them to that. Let them know that it's full of crooks. It's very dangerous. And oftentimes they'll be relieved of their money because they're just not close enough to the source. The other one is obviously Arthur and Dave's fantastic project that they did. Super niche, geeky stuff, but fabulous for it. In our Liquid Antiquarian channel. The link is also in the description box and below. And if you're picking this up on the replay, hopefully I've had time to go through and put everything into chapters, so this has been easier for you to catch tonight. The bad news is, as I leave you, there isn't a vPub next week on the 2nd of February. I am at my first ever and only ever so far industry dinner. I'm at the Ben charity dinner. I accepted the invite to it. It's a charity thing. I'm kind of looking forward to it, a wee bit apprehensive and nervous, but I'll let you know how that goes. That's next week. So it means that I'm not here on Thursday night next week. I know that'll annoy you. I'm trying to figure out a way that I could make it up to you, maybe something in the shape of a recycled review or something like that. I need to go through the empty bottles and see if that can be done. Feeling that, I'll be back here in 2 weeks' time for another potentially very ranty vPub. Of course, firmly focused on value, integrity, quality, flavour first. More quality, less quantity. Until then, I want to say thank you to you all. You're all very dearly loved, and thanks for joining me on another Thursday night. Slancheva Barflies.